All right. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're from. Glad to see everyone here. Hope you all can hear me well, or perhaps even the music. This is a new program that we've kind of started looking at recently, or that I'm excited to start. And I'm not alone this time, which is for the first time in one of our live streams. Everyone, welcome Adnan. How are you doing, Adnan?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Good. And if anyone can't hear him well, just let me know and I can probably try to adjust him a little bit and we can go from there. So, where's everyone at in relation to this particular program? I know this channel, most of what I showcase is World Creator. And so we're going to be showcasing Dash today, made by Polygonflow and Adnan here. So I'm not entirely sure if anyone from my sort of community or anyone from the Dash community, what level on the playing field, if you've never heard of Dash, if you're a pro at Dash, because how this is going to work today is we're going to be basically showcasing for all the people that aren't aware of what it is. We're going to basically be showcasing what it is and how to use it in some of its most basic forms. So if any of these pros are out there that see me do something dumb, then don't hesitate to let me know that I did something incorrectly, because I'm still sort of a novice myself, I would say. I've been around it for quite a while, and so I know that they have released several things in the past couple years, at least since I've been starting from the very beginning, back when I think it was called Graphene. Is that correctly? I think when did you guys decide to switch it from Graphene to Dash?
We decided, I think it was in June last year, something like that, yeah.
Okay. Well,
And it was basically like just a lot of the whole tool was changing. It was just a bar now and everything, so we felt like it was worth the opportunity.
I see. Well, it's cleverly named considering how speedy you can do things with it. Kind of just dash forward with creativity.
Yeah, terrible pun, but I own it.
All right. Can you guys hear Adnan pretty well? Let's see. I want to make sure that he's coming through okay. This is the very first time that we've ever had basically a guest speak with me. So kind of trying to figure out Discord a little bit. But everything I think on my end seems to be going fine if it is on y'all's. So if it's not, just let us know. Okay, so here's my sort of general run through of what Dash is. It's a plugin, it's a tool for Unreal Engine. I think it goes back as far as Unreal Engine 5.2. That's correct.
5.1.
5.1. Oh, let's see. It works for sure. Says that you're a little bit lower, but works pretty well. Let me see if I can't. Actually,
I think that it's just I talk too quietly. I'm gonna I'm gonna talk a bit more loudly. Yeah, it's just a bad habit.
I got you. No, some people have soft voices, some people don't, but I also have let's see if I can't open sound. Wow, they've done a lot of different things in Discord since I've messed with this. I also am talking a little bit closer to my mic and something a little different of a setup, but actually there used to be this little slider in Discord for adaptively increasing the volume of the people you're talking with, but I don't see that anymore. Let's see. Oh, I don't want to do that. Well, oh, it still has you as pretty cranked high on my end. Well, we could roll with that and try, let's see. A bit forward to switch to you just because of Dash. Okay, so you're looking forward to switching to Unreal just because of Dash.
Nice.
Well, that's great. I like to hear that. You and guess can be okay. Good. All right. So background music is nice and quiet, and we can be heard. Perfect. it's always hard to tell the dynamics of audio sometimes when you're not on the receiving end, but I'm glad everything is coming out perfectly fine. Okay, so the run through that I forgot to mention before, this plugin is sort of, I'd like to refer as sort of ease of quality of life for basically environment artists or people who like to level design. Quick and easy way to basically feel a scene. As you can see, if you go to polygonflow.io, that's where you can get this incredible tool. And here's a little quick clip of one of the most recent videos they posted on their own YouTube channel, which I highly recommend to go check out, of them recreating, I think it was Helldiver's scene, which is really cool. That artist did a lot of great work there. And so you can see just in this little clip, there's just some really fast, unique ways to, like I said, populate the scene. And it's interesting that it's not just populating the scene where you're dragging and dropping assets. You're populating the scene in terms of procedural methods. And I know Unreal has PCG, so it's procedural content generation, but this sort of, I feel like this kind of preluded PCG in a way. And I think it's way more effortless to create something procedural with Dash as opposed to going through the PCG pipeline of creating something with PCG graphs, because you have to manually set up all of those node graphs to be able to even do something as simple as scatter, as opposed to here, the surface scatter, you can just say, hey, I'm going to drag and drop this rock onto this surface and quite literally scatter it. There's no thinking behind it. And I think that's what's incredible that you guys have put together with this plugin, because it kind of takes the effort out of your mind trying to think of the technical connections. Like, in order to do this manually, you would have to say, all right, here's the surface or here's the landscape. I'm going to reference that based on a series of points. All right, so how can we filter those points? Well, we need to then add another node to say, well, these points need to be X amount of different distance apart, and another node that says we need to randomize these points, and another node to say we need to take these points and randomize their scale. And then we have to import an object or an FBX or some sort of static mesh, and then we want to say scatter that based on these points, but then there's a lot of back and forth. So this is sort of like that, but I think it's way more intuitive than that, because when I first started using Dash, it was a great way to quite literally populate the scene by scattering things procedurally. But what you guys have done is created a tool from start to finish, taking something from beginning to end of a scene. And we're going to be covering that, things like fog or cameras or color grading, setting up lighting, setting up, backgrounds, HDRIs. Everything could seemingly be done within this one box. It's pretty great.
That's an amazing description of Dash, and I think the thing that I love about it as well is just this whole cohesive kind of vision where I can do the scattering, which is PCG stuff, but I can actually use PCG and then go to Dash, do the grading, use the draw curve, all the different features. So it's like, even if you love PCG as a Unreal Engine user, I think you're gonna love Dash as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as Off the Rails in chat said, PCG gets messy very quickly. I feel like PCG, you've got to have more. It's creating that sort of technical artist side is what PCG is. And the level designer and the environment artist side wants to take what PCG is when someone else has already finished it. So this Dash is sort of taking you out of the technical artist side and making you an artist, just as a straight up creative person. And so yeah, let's if there's any questions that anybody wants to ask in chat, we'll both be looking at the YouTube chat. I also have Twitch open. I'll be looking at that chat. So yeah, as Mark said in Twitch, Dash is basically PCG on steroids. It's an erase car. And it is, it's big talk. And I think these guys at Polygonflow do walk the walk. Mark, you can't just say that in chat and me not try to repeat something from time to time. But anyway, so let's get out of here. We're going to start a new base level here. Actually, before I do that, we're going to do, we're going to do everything from bare bones at the very beginning. And I'll just do an empty level. Perfect. Just kind of get something started here. And before I forget, because I've done this in previous streams where I'll get an hour into it and completely forget to save everything like last time. And I've just ruined the whole hour's worth of what I was doing. But fortunately, that's part of trial and error. You do something and you can do it much quicker the second time around. And we did. Dash is definitely another superb tool like Quixel Bridge. Yes. And Quixel Bridge is sort of partly integrated with Dash as well, because one of the great things that I always wanted for Bridge is, I believe, available in Dash, which is having your own custom content libraries. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. And for those who don't know, Tyler and I actually worked together at Quixel a couple of years ago, and it was a really fun time.
Oh, yeah. Adnan would always supervise if I was doing things with enough energy or correctly. So, yeah, I miss it. I miss you, man. It was a great experience working with you there for sure. And I could definitely tell your quality of content, especially on YouTube, hasn't been reduced. You've definitely still taken it up a notch in that Adnan way that I very much admire.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Mark's in both chats. He's a double whammy here. All right. So after you have, and I believe I still have this, after you have downloaded a free trial, great way to start learning this if you're not entirely sure, but once you try it, trust me, you're going to be sure. Once you go through the installation process, just run through the typical install guidelines. But one thing it's going to ask you at one point in the install process is where you have installed your Megascans library, such as the things that if you've got the standalone app of Bridge, if you've downloaded something, where do those go? Or if you have opened Quixel Bridge right here within Unreal, once you download something here, and wow, that's actually, I haven't seen that take that long to load before.
I think sometimes, oh yeah, that's Bridge. I thought it was.
Yeah, that's Bridge. I don't think I've ever had it load that slow before. Granted, at the same time, I am streaming on YouTube and Twitch simultaneously from a single computer, so things happen. But anyway, so if you were to go through here and then download something, right where it says download, where does that locate on your local disk? If you don't know, that's okay. It sort of, I don't know if it automatically finds. I have Megascans folder located on a very specific location on my drive, so I had to manually do it. But if you don't manually do it during the installation process, you can do it here within Dash. So here in the top toolbar, the Dash icon here is in blue. So you click that and it's going to bring up this prompt bar here. This is sort of your gateway to the entire ecosystem of what Dash is and what it will become. It's sort of an AI generated way to ask you what you want to, what will you create, as it says right there. You literally just type in the things that you want to do based on what tool availability there is within the plugin itself. And it'll list out the different options based on what you type. You can select that option and then go to town with it. But before we do that, these three dots here on the left is sort of the menu to kind of set up Dash, including what version you are. So I'm on the recent version 1.7. And I'm also excited to see what the next few versions come down the line, and we'll talk about that soon. But preferences right here, we go ahead and expand this out. If I were to scroll down, you see where it says path settings. So here's the current project location. Here is the bridge plugin path and the bridge software path. The bridge software path here, if you were to click the, the paperclip icon, you will take that to the location of your Megaskins library, what's downloaded, as you can see here. The plugin path is the same area, but where the U assets are going to be downloaded at. So U assets will be everything that's downloaded within Bridge, within Unreal Engine, and everything else that's within that folder that's in the regular downloaded location will be what you have downloaded within the standalone application of Bridge itself. There's also a Polyhaven path, which is really cool. That's integrated as well, and we're going to go over some of the libraries and things like that. While we're here, if you want to add a custom library of your choice, so say if you had a folder somewhere on Windows Explorer of all your models or all of your textures, I know that there is this append external project library. Is this where you would do that, or is this have to append an Unreal project?
And another Unreal Engine project. So you just look at like the content folder of another project, and you'll be able to access the assets of that project in this one.
Gotcha. So if you were to not have a project, but you had a folder full of other items, is that yet to be part of the Dash content browser, or is there a way to add that, or is that something that you're planning to do?
We're planning to make sure that you can do it even with like FBXs, but to my knowledge, if you have like a folder with just U assets, it should work just fine as well.
Okay, so so instead of this bridge plugin path, if it's just a custom folder that's full of U assets, that would work too. Well, that makes sense to a degree. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If I ask a question, whether in chat or for you, Adnan, that is jumping the gun, or because I don't know what you're planning to bring to the table necessarily, you don't have to answer it. It will just say TBD or something like that, because I don't know if I'm just kind of spitballing of ideas or questions that I may or may not know the answer to. Perfect. All right, is there a way to import an asset as, I believe that is answered right there, not through Dash right now, but that is on the radar. All right, so let's start by showcasing some of the key things. And if I were to bring up my notes so I don't forget anything, let's kind of go from the ground up. Let's make something that kind of showcases some of the tools within Dash that you are going to probably more than likely tie into doing first to kind of get the understanding of how Dash works. So after you click the icon again, here's the prompt bar that comes up. You literally type anything in here. So if I were to say plane, all right, so after I typed in plane, you can see create a plane mesh, create a landscape, create a primitive mesh, terrain, or a pipe. So we're just going to create a plane mesh. All right, and let's focus on that a little bit. And I zoomed around a bit too much. I am involved a lot into UEFN right now, and the way that my movement controls in UEFN and the way that my movement controls in Unreal are sort of in reverse for me. I like the ones in Unreal better, but I use UEFN enough to mess myself up from time to time. All right, so now what can we do with this plane? So this icon here is the content library. So it's sort of like Bridge, but it's the Dash content browser. So everything that you have within this project, within the Megaskins library, or within Polyhaven, and so on and so forth, you can basically choose to open this up and see that. I'm going to move these around. This is really cool, by the way, being able to have different windows that we can move around. Is there any plans that you guys have in terms of docking, or do you kind of like the free flow aspect to this?
Yeah, I think docking will be there as soon as we're able to do it. Like it's just really hard to do in Unreal because we use like our own custom UI framework. But yeah, as soon as we can, we will ship it.
I gotcha. It's not imperative. It's just interesting notion, because I actually like the fact of the content browser here kind of hanging off on my side monitor, like in full screen, and just drag and drop that content from one monitor to another. So that's actually a pretty fun aspect of the browser. So here you can see in this drop-down menu, we have Megascan. So that's the library that we've attached to, but you also have an IES library, which I am outrageously excited about. And then there's Polyhaven and a unified view and what's ever in your current project. And I think, there we go. Go to the next one. The music sometimes decides to just pause itself. All right, and so that's one way that you can sort between the different libraries that you have. If you have Polyhaven, this is really cool. You can just add in HDRIs, other objects, IES library, which I'm going to cover later, but you can literally drag and drop in lighting information from real light fixtures, which is really cool. Something that I'm quite used to doing in architecture with actual manufacturers. That's really, really great to see. So if we go back to the Megascan's library option, right now you see all the assets that are currently downloaded within your local drive. If you want to add more assets, you can click on Open Bridge here, which will load the built-in bridge plugin, or you can just do it, from the add icon here in Quixel Bridge. It basically is just a quick link to open up Bridge. So anything that you then decide to add download from Bridge should seemingly appear within the content browser, the Dash content browser. If we were to click the open folder icon here, it kind of goes ahead and sorts everything by these tags. And the tags from the Megascan's library are already, for the most part, tagged appropriately. But if you were to click on any tile here, right click, and then asset details, it'll give you some more information about which tags there are. So if you're wanting to search for any of these tags that are right here, go to the search bar, type in that tag. And if you have a custom tag, and this is where it gets really cool for whenever you add your own libraries, or if you know of something from a other project, like Anand said, adding or appending another Unreal project to have access to those libraries. If you want to be able to reach those quickly and you want to add your own custom tags, you add that right there. So let's go ahead and go to surface, sort by surfaces. And I'm going to go to ground, and let's drag this. I'm going to hold control. And as I'm holding control, I'm going to let go right there. I don't think I did that correctly. Select it first, then drag, hold control, and then apply to selection.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, if you were to not have selected the object first, what would have happened? Because I've never actually done that.
You can just drag and drop it. No need to even hold control. Like, you just drop it on the surface and it'll apply. Yeah, I think control is more practical when you want to like scatter, where you hold control, then yeah.
Self after the fact, but I didn't want to wait 5-10 minutes for it to recoup itself, if that makes sense. So, can you see my screen okay on Discord?
Yes, I can. How are you gonna? Do you want me to tell them you're going live again in a few minutes?
I should have already started it. I don't know how to. I've restarted it, but I don't know. I don't know if I have to end YouTube and restart it or what. It says I've got it.
Oh, someone said I hear you. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Is it back on?
Yeah, it looks like it's back on. Good. I can see your screen as well on YouTube.
Okay.
Oh boy, that was quite the adventure.
Yeah, so hold on, I think this might be too loud for me. Okay, I can see it on my phone now. So I'd like to preface everybody that that's not that's never happened to me using this program, to using Dash before. And it's actually, and I'm sure some of you have known, it's been close to happening on a previous stream. So it's nothing new. I don't know what why I would do that, because my computer's not small by any means. I mean, I have a 3090 Ti. I have 128 gigs of RAM. I really don't know what happened. Livestream gremlins. Yeah, had to refresh. It's fine. We're fine. Maybe so that the chat or so that the streams don't get bugged out like that. Maybe I crashed because of VRAM usage plus streaming buffer. Yeah, I guess that's true. All right, hold on one sec. That's a good point. Well,
I do think it seems like just a misfortune type thing, because the scene was so light that
yeah, it was nothing.
yeah.
I hadn't even done anything.
That's the thing, you know. And if you know, with regards to Dash, for those who use it or don't, there is one operation you can do where it's very resource intensive, and that is when you start the AI tagging process. There it'll, you know, it will basically take all your RAM because it's super heavy. But yeah, we were dragging an asset, so I have no clue what happened there.
Oh, that was one for the ages. All right, so we're back live. We're back live in, I guess, all those locations. So anyway, if it happens again, I guess I will try to turn off the Twitch portion, because Twitch is the only one that is using the NVENC encoder, but that doesn't use up VRAM. That's a whole dedicated thing. And what's streaming to YouTube is just CPU. So I don't know if that makes a difference with it or not, but that's never happened before. All right, so let's try and do this again. Let me open up my notes. Nope, not that one. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. That was kind of unexpected. All right, we'll open up the content browser again, surfaces, and you can see it's finding everything there. Go to ground. Let's try moss this time. I've got the item selected, and I will drag it over. Apply to selection. Perfect. In this kind of stream scenario, it's ideal using another to get the for just stream. Yep, that's exactly right. Just streaming from a second computer. Well, I don't have one yet, but if this one gets upgraded later, then I could just use this one for streaming and use a new one for the actual work or something. Or maybe I could try doing it from my laptop. There's multiple things, but yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits to having two computers. All right, so let's now, before we start actually scattering pieces or doing elements, I did want to point out that if you're a first-time user to Dash and you're not entirely sure what to type into the prompt right here, if you double-click on the Dash icon here, it's going to give you a laundry list of different inputs that you can plug in. One of which is surface scatter, which is probably the number one that you will more than likely use up front to kind of get used to the system, as well as the curve tool, the path tool, decal scatter, and grid scatter, very similar to surface scatter, but different elements. Yeah, so you can just go through and see all the different things that you want to do, and it's very intelligent. Actually, one of the greatest ones is this one right here, pivot. I can't tell you how many times I've brought in an object, whatever it is, or a group of objects, and you have to open up, you have to change the pivot point of the location, not just changing the pivot point of that object to move it temporarily, because there's a temporary version and a permanent version on switching the actual point. So if you were to do this, it's just quickly quickly adds a way to adjust and manually decide where you want that, basically that origin point to be. If that makes sense. Let's say when manually added tags configures are sorting for backup purposes. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe Anand can help you. It's
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So basically, I'm just gonna go and put the path. It's like in my documents, Polygonflow -content library. There's a file there where you can find all the tags. Yeah.
Oh, as by default.
Yeah, it's by default. It always goes there.
Oh wow. All right, so since we've basically taken this surface and applied that texture to it, after we've selected said surface, we get a new icon right here. And so this is the material properties that you can adjust, which is really, really great, to be honest. Instead of having to open up a material instance on onto the side, much like the material instance for my other sessions, like this material instance for this landscape, instead of having to open up this and go to details and adjust all these different parameters, of course, you've had to have customized all these for your texture already. Like you would have to go into the material, manually add all the hue, saturation, brightness, contrast controls. But here, if you just drag and drop, it sort of takes the material that was a part of that already, especially if it's a quick Megascans one, and you can adjust it right here on the fly. So if I want to adjust the hue, you can see that it's adjusting the hue, or maybe I want it to be super saturated. Maybe I want it to be a little bit brighter. We can really increase this to be brighter. You can see it changing right on the fly. There we go. Now we can see it really changing. And on top of that, if we were to go to tiling, yes, here it is. Instead of having to go into and changing the tiling amount, the UV tiling in the material instance, you just do it here. And it's quite really unique. One thing I was curious about is if the texture wasn't a perfect square, is there a way to change the U versus the tiling of the U versus the tiling of the V?
There will be in 1.8, actually. We did that change. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And on top of that, I'm going to exit out of this real quick, go to my content browser, and let's find a 3D object. Let's just search for rock. Yeah, let's go ahead and bring in something that's hopefully not too heavy. So let's bring in this. And while it's loading, I'm going to make sure that I am bringing out my cursor outside of Unreal, just in case. And I actually think that asset that I drug in was, yeah, it's pretty big. I thought it was the size of a pebble, but this is one of the things I wanted to showcase bringing in. Let me zoom out. This is obviously really big. I thought it was the size of a pebble. But one great thing about whenever you drag in 3D assets like this from the Dash content browser into the scene is you have this really handy, I don't know if you can see this little dot on the screen. If I were to move this around, it intelligently attaches itself to the surface that it's on. And there's these quick help. I think, let me do a smaller one. Yeah, let's do a smaller one because this is really big. Funny thing, my keyboard does not have a delete button on it. It's just all right, let's do that. Scale this up a little bit. And then let's change the tiling of it a little bit more. So now let's find something that's maybe a little smaller. There it is. That's all right. So now, as you can see, there's this helpful, and I don't know what. Yeah, there's this helpful little menu here that kind of explains some of the key commands that you can do while you have the asset out. And as you can see, I'm moving this asset around. It's attached to the surface itself. If I wanted to scale up, all I have to do is hit Control and move my cursor left or right, and it's automatically still attaching itself to the surface, which is phenomenal. Or if I want to rotate, Shift, same thing. So Shift and left or middle mouse, and you don't have to really scroll or anything. I'm just clicking and moving my mouse, as you can see, left or right on the screen. It's really intelligent.
And by the way, when you right below the close icon in the content browser, there's like a dotted menu. You can click there and click on the option Show Asset Details. And after that, whenever you click on an asset, you'll see like a human thumbnail on it for scale reference.
I'm going to save this real quick just in case. All right. So right where it says Asset Details.
Yeah. Show Asset Details. And then you click on a 3D asset. You can zoom in with like Control mouse wheel, and then you should start seeing text resolution, polygon count. And,
like on let's see, in this window here. Oh
yeah, in the content browser window, right above the open bridge. No, on the panel itself.
Oh, I see. So show asset details. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Control and zoom. Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. So, all right, that actually helps a tremendous amount. So let's go to this one. This is the one I had before. So yeah, it was pretty big. And the asset that I brought in was this one. So yep, it's the size of a pebble. And yeah, you can see that information right there. It says about 1/4 of a meter by 1/4 of a meter. And you can favorite it too. That's pretty cool. As well as the texture size and the triangle count. All right, that is really snazzy. I like that. I did not know about that. I did know about set megascans folder. That's another way to open up that little window if you wanted to establish where this folder was located. So that is pretty nifty. Also, on this rock, with this rock selected, I can also change the material properties of it specifically as well. If I want to match the craziness of the ground, I can also change its hue quite natively. But the real reason why I wanted this rock in here was to show you a couple of other features of this edit material, which is really cool. But before I do that, if you're unsure of where you left off, like this hue is getting really crazy, or the saturation, if we want to make it desaturated a whole lot, of course I can just type this in here. If you don't like what you see, if you were to hold Control and middle mouse click on any one of these, it sets it back to whatever the default value is. I think that's a really handy tip as well. And I did not know that if it wasn't for a Nun's YouTube channel on that quick little shortcut there. Let's see, my tiling on landscape does not work. I always have to go to the actual material instance. Any ideas? So in terms of like the edit material tiling here for a landscape mesh. Okay.
Like when you drag and drop one of the materials on a landscape, there seems to be an issue where if you adjust the tiling, it doesn't adjust at runtime. We actually reproduced that the other day and we'll fix it.
I gotcha. Well, that's good to know. That's one other thing I wanted to point out, that if you wanted to, and I don't know if I've linked it in the description of the video, but you can post it here in chat too. Polygonflow's Discord channel is a great resource if you're not entirely sure what to do. There's a load of people there willing to help you out and troubleshoot different things like that. So great source. All right, let me zoom in a little closer onto this rock. So one thing that's part of the edit material for these assets is the fact that you can add dirt, snow, and any other sort of variation on top of this without having to really think about doing it. One of my favorite ones is snow. This is really cool because I've always wanted the ability to easily add a global sort of snow effect to assets without having to dive into creating that material, because it's just more work than it really needs to do when you can just enable the snow, and you can adjust many different parameters of how that snow texture is tiled. The snow slope here is actually really cool. So if we were to reduce this, you can see in real time, it is reducing the amount of snow based on the slope of the asset. Or
yeah, I was just going to say we are revamping it now, and it will look incredible in the next update. The snow, like you just wait, it'll look really beautiful.
Well, rest assured, this is not going to be the one and only live stream or piece of content on Dash, because this is such an amazing. Because I know that you've mentioned that you're doing some UI updates and things like that. So I'm sure there's some things that are going to be changed to make everyone's lives much more incredible. Like, just dirt. Let me add some dirt to this asset. So I selected the surface and I've clicked the material edit there as well. There's also a dirt one here, enable dirt over the entire asset. Man, look at this. Okay. So as I've said before, I've used Dash quite a bit, but not to the extent of having enough time to really dive through all of these adjustments. Most of what I've done in the past is different levels of scattering assets, but just being able to do this. Well, I want this asset to be just a little bit more dirty in areas. And I think you've mentioned that if you've selected, let's see, I know that works for blended materials, but if you wanted to say, I want to paint in a custom amount of dirt over this area versus this area, I know if you have a blended material, you can go to Vertex Paint and then paint in different R, B, and G channels of the three different materials. Is there any plan or already a way to say we can do that now with the material itself? Like if I wanted to add snow to this.
Yeah. So that's actually something we are working on now. I think
okay.
For the dirt, it's actually done, and the snow. And yeah, you'll be able to have one material and you can paint those two, or the really complex blend material, and finally like a simple PBR, like the cheapest one, just albedo roughness normal, and that's it. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So you're ahead of the curve.
Always.
Perfect. I'm a fan of material blending too. And especially if you've, it's one of those things that it's very, it seems like it's complex to set up, but it doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? And let's see. And right, yeah, you get several different other controls here. So I'm not going to go over every single one of these things. Of course, you can adjust many different things however you want, but that's one outlet that is really nifty when creating different pieces. All right, so here is one of the things that you're definitely going to be using quite a bit, and that is scatter. So if I were to type in scatter, surface scatter. Now you can do this now, but the easiest thing is if you already have an asset. So if I wanted to go to say 3D plant, and of course that, I don't know why rock is part of that 3D plant. Let me try and find, what's this one called? Show asset names. That's another handy thing. So there's one plant that I wanted to really pop out, tundra grass. All right. This one right here. So this is pretty nifty. Let's take this tundra grass, and I've already lost it. There it is. I'm going to select the surface here, this primitive surface. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this 3D grass on top of the surface. Now what happens is Dash is smart enough to know exactly what you're wanting to do. So I'm going to hit Control, drag, and drop it onto this surface. So you have a couple options. Scatter here, which is going to be if it's a general scattering onto a surface that's selected. Like if I were to not have selected an item, I believe scatter here would have already recognized that this is a thing that I want to scatter onto, a mesh that wherever the cursor is left at, I believe is when it says we're going to scatter here. But since I've selected the plane first, we can choose scatter on selection. Drop here is going to drop the actual static mesh as an individual element. And then there's several other things like place it in a grid, overlap, and physics. We're going to get into physics later, but going ahead and type or click on scatter on selection. There we go. And that was pretty quick. And you can see it's instantly scattered the tundra grass all over this particular surface that I have. And it's that fast. I'm going to bring this bar down here a little bit so that you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit better. All right, so we can change many parameters of this grass. The density, and I'm going to manually type this into 0.7, maybe 0.85, something a little bit more dense. Perfect. All right, so this is now pretty dense, but say we want to control the different scales of the terrain, or of the, I'm so used to saying terrain, there's different scales of the assets. So down in the parameters, you have min and max scale. Maybe I don't want them this big. Maybe I want them 7, and we can make them pretty tiny. So we can make it a little bit smaller. Let's go over here to my rock. Typically how I work is I want to think of what my scene is going to be doing in terms of how I want the assets to be scattered on the scene. Let me actually go over here so the lighting is just a smidge better. I don't think the ground, let me select the ground and change that hue back to something a little bit more normal. There we go. Perfect. All right, so we have the surface scatter. All right, so there's many different settings that you can go through. One of my favorite is fall off. That's going to help bring in the edges wherever it's scattered. If there's an edge to it, it's going to sort of blend that edge a little bit more, making the sort of scale factor of the ones at the border of where it's scattering a little bit smaller, so it can give a little bit more realistic look, because grass will typically be small on the edges of the boundaries of grass because it's trying to spread and grow. And the taller grass is going to be in the middle area, basically like a forest. If you go to a forest, the tall trees are going to be more in the central part of the forest, and the smaller trees, or especially if it's of the same species, is going to be a little bit smaller on the edge of the forest, because the sun, everyone's trying to grow towards the sun. So fall off is kind of like that natural curve to control the fading amount from the center part of the selection to the outer bounds of the selection. Which makes me think this is a really cool idea, and I don't know if it's thought of already, but to be able to control the fall off curve, having like a custom curve parameter that you can establish for that fall off, is that something that you guys have thought about?
Yes, we are working on it like literally now, like a curve widget where you can draw like a profile, even for like the road, just to change the shape. Yeah.
I gotcha. Perfect. That's all. That's great to hear. So the next thing that we can think of is, okay, so how do we take this grass and adjust it? Well, there's, in terms of relation to other assets, much like with PCG, and I showcased this, I think, on the first World Creator live stream, where I wanted a series of rocks to be populated around a certain proximity of a tree trunk. Well, you can do that here, but obviously in a way more efficient way. So I'm going to go down here to where it says proximity mask. You can do object mask too, since this is technically an object, but let's do proximity mask first. So I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to select the rock, make sure it's selected first, and we want to add this rock as an object to the list of objects that the surface scatter is going to recognize. So we're going to hit the plus icon here. It's recognized that, but you see it's done nothing yet because the distance from that rock is really small. Let's change this to 100. And did you see that right there? How it widened that out? Let's make the density a little bit denser. There we go. Of course, it's adding a lot of variation there. That might be a little too big. Let's make it a little smaller. There we go. So you see the idea how the surface scatter proximity mask grabbed the distance away from that rock and masked it out. If we wanted to say everywhere this rock goes, we want the surface scatter to be, we can hit invert that. And if we wanted to move this rock around, look, I mean, this feature right here, Adnan, for me was, when I first saw this, was basically just life-changing. It's one of those quality of life things that I had talked about. So this to me is worth Dash alone, just to have the ability to say, hey, I want all these rocks to have this amount of grass on it. But of course, you see that we have grass because the grass blades are populating within that rock. Well, that is where object mask could come into play. So let's object mask. Let's add this rock back to object mask.
Okay. By the way, could you share your screen on Discord just so that I see the live thing as well?
Oh, did I not do that earlier? Oh,
I think it cut when the stream went off, maybe.
Let me stop it and then re-engage it for you, because it's showing that it is on my end.
Okay.
Go live to Adnan. Let me know when you can see it.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe it's because I minimized Discord or something. That could be an effect. I'll keep it open so I can see what I'm doing.
I can see it now. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to use object scatter, or object masking, sorry. And I'm going to set the distance to, say, 50. And I'm going to reduce, I'm not going to have keep inside. If I take away keep inside, it's going to say, hey, everything within this object is going to be basically deleted. So there's two different ways we can do that proximity mask. I basically just masked it by the object, but also I have a proximity of this grass around this said object. Let's increase the boundary a little bit for this distance. I think what I did, this is one of those object masking. Did I do that? Yeah, that's what I did. I forgot to invert the distance outside of the object. So I'm masking out the object itself. You can see there's a ring around the rock now. So we've object masked the rock. Let's bring this in just a little bit more. Let's say maybe not 1. I meant to do 10. There, you can see that the grass has stopped just at the edge of the rock. So that's basically 10 units away from the outside perimeter of that rock. Or maybe it's the 10 units from the pivot point of that object. That's something I haven't really thought about. So maybe that's what that is.
Yeah, in object masking case, it's actually from the vertices, basically, of the object.
Oh, that's even better. So this is quite literally 10 units. Is that Unreal units? So 10 centimeters?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now I mentioned, remember that fall off earlier? If I were to say increase this fall off to, let's take it up to somewhere like 3. Do you see how the boundary of this kind of creeped downward a little bit? Let's do,
I think
15.
If you also reduce like the min scale property, you're gonna see the effect like right away, which is
oh yeah, like do this at 0.1. Yeah, that's true, because the min scale, it takes a whole lot of fall off to reduce that minimum scale. That's a good point. This is actually looking a lot better in terms of that.
Yeah, and now you can the fall off, you can basically play between like 0 and 1. It'll still look really realistic.
Yeah. And keep in mind that I did notice that fall off, let me change it back to 10. That fall off applies to the object mask line here for this masking. since we've added that edge to be part of the fall off, it's treating that as sort of an invisible spline to be affected. So let me take this back down to, I liked 1. It wasn't too bad. All right, and we'll take this down to, maybe we can do this at 2. This is obviously one of those things where we could just spend hours and hours playing with it. So there's several different things that we can do that we may not cover today, but we'll certainly cover as much as we can in a speedy time. All right, so here's another aspect to surface scatter. There's several you can see here. There's feature masking, noise masking, which is really cool. Let's take this proximity mask and just click this icon. I don't even know what to call it, but clear object container. So it basically removes what we were doing. And yeah, so it removes that and it made the object mask priority. There we go. So let's do this at 0.2. Oh, maybe 0.02. 0.01. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show is some of the other noise features. If you didn't want to worry about masking out the areas, you can adjust how the scatter is being populated based on noise. That's what this breakup is for. Let's increase this. And this is really cool. I love this. You can see already. Let me zoom out. Oop, too fast. There you go. You can kind of see the breakup of the grass already. So if I were to break it up even more, it's sort of adding a procedural noise to the entire surface that it's being applied to. You can change the scale. So say I want that noise to be a little bit smaller. It's quite easy to see right there, that's for sure, especially since this fall off that I've adjusted, it's making a pretty staggering effect on it, which I really like. And you can change the different types of smoothing amount, the warping of the noise, if you want it to be really basically changing the noise shape itself on how the little splotches occur. And you can obviously adjust the noise scaling in different ways. You can stretch it in one direction versus another. Is this noise mask a 3D noise, or is it just a 2D, like an alpha mask that you've used? Oh, you still with me, Anon?
Oh, yeah, I was muted. It's a 3D noise, and when you apply it on like a sphere and that type of shape, that's when it becomes really obvious. But most of the time, yeah, on a plane, it'll look like a 2D noise.
So especially if I were to have applied this grass to this rock, we could have added a whole nother line of adding, noise adjustments to this specific one.
Exactly.
That's really cool. And then there's border masking. So, you have several different options of how you want to do it. Edge breakup, rotation properties, scale properties, different things. One of the other cool things that I really liked about this, so I'm going to exit out of surface scatter. I'm going to select the grass itself. And this is really cool. So that's one thing to note is how do you get the settings back, to adjust what you want to adjust? If you click on any of these assets that were applied by Dash, so if I click on the surface scatter, the little prompt bar here is going to know exactly what that is. And so right here is sort of the butt icon where you can adjust the different parameters. So it's going to know exactly what that is. And you can see here is the surface scatter properties panel that we just had open a second ago. I select the assets, the surface scatter again, and we can change, like we did before, the material of the grass itself. And this is what's another piece of the edit material that I'm really excited about. Before we do this, let's select the grass again and look at one more icon. This icon here lets you sort of change the color variation of the grass itself. And now I'm curious where that icon went. I hope it's not off screen. There it is. No, it's fine. All right, so we've got, here is the instance variation of the grass itself. So what we want to do basically here is just to enable it, saying it gives the grass permission to have a different color variation. And you can see we have a variety of 2 different color variation options here. Let's go ahead and increase the noise scale. So this noise scale is just like the noise scale that we applied to filter out the location of the grass, but it's using that noise for changing the colors throughout the grass. So if let's increase this to, I don't know, let's do 0.6. All right, so now if we go back to the material properties of the grass, and then we go down to where it says variation, since we enabled variation and we adjusted that first color, let's enable the color variation. If I go zoom in a little bit here, let's see what happens here. This is probably going to look a little better if I were to have made the grass a little bit more dense. I think I did it right. Yeah, I can see it's changing the hue of the grass. You can see right here, it's a little bit more blue. And over here in this area, it's a little bit more green. So you can see the different variations of the grass. If I want to change, let's see. There you go. You can see the color a little bit now, the noise scale, that variation. So that's one really neat way to add more randomness to each asset. So this color variation will work if no matter what you scatter. If it's a scattering of different rocks, in this case I used grass. It's a sort of an alien looking grass now between this sort of bluish green to this now really dark purple grass. That is one aspect to the plugin that just gives you the ability. You notice this entire time, I haven't had to go into a material shader yet. I'm being able to change all of these variations, which is really cool. Let's now, sorry.
One thing that I actually love about using Dash is you can actually just go in full screen and do work like for hours, and you'll forget that the UI.
Oh yeah, you
exist.
can. Nope, not that one. I forgot what the command was. Hold on.
It's a F11.
Yeah, I gotta do. Actually, you're gonna laugh. I'm on a keyboard that doesn't have that functionality. Real quick.
There you go. Yeah,
so yeah,
right,
we could.
I'm gonna laugh.
I do, but I have to hit FN first, so the function key first, the pre-function key, and then select the function key. But I don't think my function keys are working too well. So yeah, you can do everything you want within this. That makes me think of another really cool feature. So that's surface scatter. Of course, we didn't cover every single aspect of what surface scatter is, especially when it comes to adding a preset or a reference. So anywhere like, and this is one thing that I haven't done much that I think is really, really cool. So say for object masking here, I like the distance, which I don't really in this case, but say I like the distance that this grass is from this rock, and I want to replicate that on any other object that I add. I don't have to. If I could add a wrong command. I think I just made it move way too much. All right. I know you've done this. There we go. So I've added a second rock. Of course, this rock needs to go back over here so I can see the perimeter. So what you can do is, all right, I want to add this rock right here to this object list. Or I could, and actually, can you select the objects in the container? Is there a way to remove just one object, or is it remove all the objects?
Actually, you can, so with the object selected, right click on the property itself and click on remove selected. Right click on the container property in the dash UI.
Oh, I see, remove selected. Okay. There we go. So we could do what you just had us to do. We could add this here, or we could add this parameter right here as a reference point. So I want to add a reference. Say I want to call this rock distance. Okay, and hit the checkbox to enable that. So right now, this rock distance parameter and everything about it is saved for future use. Now, say I want to have a different set of rules. So let's come over here, and actually I'm going to save since I haven't in a while. I have autosave turned off for anyone curious, because when I was doing terrain work and autosave turns on, it recompiled all my shaders all over again, and it was not fun waiting for that to compile. All right, so say now, let's try and find, let's add this rock again. But let's do this. Oh, I'm glad you told me about this control zoom feature. That's actually really nifty. So let's get a small rock. Let's do this guy. All right, so I'm going to control select, and I didn't select the surface first, but I think that's okay because it knows that I want to do it on the surface instead of anything else. How's everyone doing in chat so far? I see that you've been talking to them quite well, so I'm glad that you're here to answer questions.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, would be good. Would be, oh, let's see. Yeah, that's up in the plans. Okay, so you've said that. Oh, I didn't know that. So you guys are doing runtime virtual textures in the pipeline?
Yes, definitely hoping we can ship that in like after the next release. Yeah.
So that would be cool if it's just like, hey, this rock, click, enable, just blend, and then there's
exactly.
and then there's like this fall off. There's just a blend parameter that says, or maybe there's a choice of. I probably should stop talking because you're probably like, I've already got all this taken care of. All right.
I completely agree there on how the UX, as you describe it, like it should just be like drop a thing and then it's a slider and that's it basically.
Or what I was going to say was which one takes priority. So do you want more or less rock to blend into the ground, or you want more or less of the ground to blend in to the rock, depending on, sediment and stuff. Maybe there's a side of the rock that you like based on the angle of the rock that gets more sediment that the other side of the rock does not. That's some crazy control. All right. So say we want this scatter to be based off this rock, of course. So we can do object masking like before, and we can add this object to that mask. But instead of having to manually change this distance like before, we can click on the override the value with reference property, and look, that rock distance that we established with the grass, we could use here, and it applies. Of course, I think the rocks in this case are probably a bit too close for 0.001, but that's okay because I remember this value here, or this number here to the right, is sort of an offset, if that's correct.
Yes, that one is kind of an offset.
Kind of an offset.
Yeah.
You can also, so you can invert it as well. Oh, it only controls the distance of the padding. This weight acts as a multiplier for the property's value, a weight. Oh, okay. So that's a weighted value. So I didn't really set myself up for success there. But You can. Oh, so you can control the slider here as well.
Yeah, and you can hold like Alt to jump by 10 increments.
Oh. I'm going to deselect that. So with this selected, so Alt.
Yeah. With
that
one, yeah.
That actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have known that. I did not.
I've seen a lot of people not knowing. And to be fair, this is my fault. Like, who does sliders like this? You know, I'm working on fixing that.
Well, it's not your fault. And World Creator had sliders like this too. The graphic for the slider itself wasn't an icon; it was a bar. But you have to select the center point of that bar. It kind of looked like a radio dial that you would just keep scrolling forever. Very similar to, I think Houdini has a very similar radio dial that way. But this actually makes sense to me versus something else. I don't have a problem with that. But knowing that function is there is really cool. Maybe you had a really cool, whenever you drag and dropped an asset, that little helpful tooltip window. I guess it could be the same here as well for different application, or for different tool sets on what you're wanting to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So that's another aspect that you can reference. You can add or create a reference of a sort of procedural feature that you've done, and you can spread that across multiple types of tools within this incredible tool. The next thing I want to showcase is another really handy feature is curves and paths. So if I want to say draw a curve, this is pretty sick. So it's hard to see on screen, but I just drew this wacky curve right there. And while this is open, I think if I do this, if I hold down Control and then middle mouse click and drag, it changes sort of the number of points. And if I were to what is the, maybe I should just do this. I noticed my screen has a very interesting, and I think it's because of my double monitor case where I can't actually click on certain things.
Yeah, I think the other hotkey that is really useful for this one is like you hold Shift on the curve. By the way, when you draw a curve, you can select it and type draw curve again, and it will edit it, even if the curve wasn't made by Dash.
Okay.
Yeah, but so you draw a curve and then you hold like a Shift middle mouse, and then it will just smooth it out.
You hold what again?
One sec. I think it's like a draw curve, and then
it's Shift. Yeah, so I'm changing. You can see here. So Control and middle mouse move changes the points number, and Shift middle mouse click. Let me do something a little bit more drastic. Changes the smooth value. Actually, let me draw a better curve. Because obviously this one's not cutting it. Draw a curve. I don't know. I think my when I do this, the cursor for me for some reason is like several offset. Yeah. See? Yeah, there we go. That's okay. I'm just going to, I see where the blue's going, so I'm just doing something wacky. There we go. All right. So now we have something that we can work with. So Control and middle mouse, I'm going to reduce the number of points. Then Shift and middle mouse click. Ooh, smooths that curve. There we go. See how this is smoothing? So Shift, middle mouse click, and it's really smoothing that out. That is really cool. All right,
Yeah,
so now
this one feature for me makes Dash worth it. Like I love it so much. I
I
use it
mean,
every single time.
I thought just the normal scatter of me moving this rock around was worth it, but yeah, so I want to move this rock over here, and you can see everything just runs in near real time. All right, so I'm now going to select, yeah, we can actually select the grass and edit the surface scatter parameters. And you can actually do a path scatter with this, right? You can use, with the surface, you can select proximity mask based off of the curve, because isn't the curve an object?
You want to hide everything near the curve?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the workflow. You do proximity
there we go.
masking. There you go.
Yeah, because I know there's one that's yeah, there we go. Or vice versa, if I wanted to reverse that. Of course, I have other things working right now, which is really, really cool. So I can select each individual node and pull it out if I wanted to, like that. Maybe we make this distance a little tighter. Maybe less tight. There we go. Is it enough having every render machine installed Dash? I think it's probably worth it. So the path tool I think it's kind of ridiculously good. Of course, I'm editing the how smooth I changed it before. Is there a way to change the like we did with the hotkeys, change the curve after you've already been finished with it?
You mean like resampling it or smoothing it?
Yeah, like if you wanted to select it and then resample it.
Yeah, so basically select the curve, type a draw curve in Dash, hit enter, and then that's it. You can hold control to resample. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it redoes it. Oh, that's really cool.
There you go. It is, yeah.
That's kind of ridiculous. I see why you like this one a lot.
Yeah.
Can move that down the side. Perfect. And we can add multiple things to this particular spline as well. Any static mesh we want to spawn on this, any static mesh we want to mask for this. That actually brings up a good point. I like the idea of the path tool spawning, or the curve tool spawning something. And so we could do draw curve again. And hopefully I can get this on the screen this time. There we go.
One thing also that you can do with curves is if you have the content browser open and you select the curve, you can drop in the view and hold control, and then you just pick scatter on selection. And instead of doing like surface scatter, it will call the tool path scatter. So if you have like wooden posts, you would have like a nice path. Yeah.
That is, I don't think I have any wooden posts. I was going to do some, I did notice that, I don't know if it was just me or if it's something, but when I went to add something, from Bridge and download it, it didn't instantly, or it didn't appear in the list yet until I restarted Unreal. Wasn't a problem because I basically just went to Bridge and downloaded a bunch of stuff and then opened it up.
Yeah, we had someone report it a few days ago. I think we fixed it already for 1.8. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and this is you said exactly what I was hoping to showcase, which was spawning something on the spline. So we have the curve here, and I will drag this barrel onto that, and then scatter on selection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the asset loads, and then the magic happens.
I would assume that
Hopefully.
Once, like if you knew a whole collection of assets that you wanted up front, if you had already pre-spawned them, like in a in your project in general, like in a museum of sorts, like an asset museum,
Mhm.
if you already had them preloaded and then you drag and dropped them in, would it seemingly skip the loading process and just add them like an instance?
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically how like I have one project I've been working on for 2 years, and everything is instant when I load assets because, I just it's like my library project, so to speak.
That's really cool. That makes it worth the while for especially if you did where was it, preferences, and you appended an external project library. That makes me think if you had a project that was dedicated to just having all your assets in that library, and then you just loaded them in, but it still would have to load them into this project. So I guess that doesn't save you any time. But
Yeah, yeah. You would have to do it basically in the same project, and
yeah.
yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with having a whole different level that's just all of your assets,
Yeah.
or at least loaded in the content browser, like you said. So yeah, we can spawn. The barrels is a good example. The path scattering process here makes me think of roads. Being able to just do this to spawn road meshes, or if you, much like the curve material here, where you scattering objects on the surface and then using the curve to either add or subtract or outline that curve in any way, because I know you can do outlines as well, like, create a curve or a spline based on an object, which is really cool. Being able to just do a path scatter like this to say, hey, here's my path through the woods. The woods are going to be reduced. Like, there's not going to be any trees or shrubs or anything that go along my path, but I can spawn in, collectively spawn in whatever I want on this path just from adding multiple objects. I mean, we could add, a wooden block to this path, and it would just be another thing to scatter. Even if you didn't, let's add this wooden crate just out here and let it load in. Basically, what I'm trying to say is you don't have to have the assets selected up front. You can have them off to the side somewhere. And then as long as you have that asset selected and go up here to where it says scatter, and then click on the plus icon to, add that object as part of the scattered objects, it'll work. So right now I'm just going to disable that. So I have this box selected. I'm just going to click this plus icon on the scatter option, and it's going to add this static mesh as part of one of the instances along that spline, which is legendary because hey, what if you decided that spline didn't have everything that you wanted? You could change it later, which is really cool. All right, so we have this spline selected. And now, I believe, yeah. And now we can say, hey, we want to increase that density. I think I deleted it. So if you delete, that's something I just learned. If you delete the reference, does it delete the scatter on the spline?
The objects?
Yeah.
Yes. So, for example, if you were to select the grass that you've scattered earlier and you delete it, it's also going to delete the tool surface scatter as well.
Well, I meant like in terms of like if I were to select this object here as a standalone object by itself, if I were to delete it like I just did, it removes it as one of the sources in the scatter for the spline. Even though they're here, if I were to readjust the density.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I gotcha. So that's one thing to note. I'm going to go back to what I had just a second. A couple undos. That's okay. We'll select this spline again. Nope, not that one. Let's see. I think I lost my tool.
Wait, what?
I'm selecting the spline. Nope.
You should select the barrels to see the tool hint.
But yeah, but the list isn't showing. The icon for the
yeah, something must have gotten messed up in those deleting operations earlier. I don't know.
That's okay. This actually is fine because I will just do it again. No harm. This is all fun anyway. So draw a curve. Yeah. There we go. All right. Let's pull this over here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Ooh, I don't think it's showing up at all now.
Oh.
Yeah, none of them are showing.
So you have the curve selected and
yeah, you can see it's selected right here.
Okay, and try to drop an asset with this.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I was looking for the my bad. I was looking for the scatter on selection.
There you go.
There we go. But what I wanted to point out here was a few of these options in terms of, we can do density. But one of the things I liked here was the jitter. I think, is it the tangent jitter? Or scatter jitter? Oh, that's the size. Oh yeah, this is really cool. You can sync assets instead of having to raise and lower the assets individually. You can sync them all together. That's really cool. And I'm just gonna reset that back into the point. All right, so this isn't one thing. We can change the width of the path. This is really cool. So it's changing the sorry, hold on. We're gonna do the width. This path is wide and it's duplicated, but we can keep centered. That's width sides. We're getting some very interesting results here.
Yeah, if you increase the width, the value with like Alt, you'll see things starting to spread out quite nicely.
Yeah.
There you go.
And obviously my, I'm sure we can reduce the density to make it a little bit less as well.
And the more you make the curve with the smooth property, the more you make it smoother, the more things will look a bit more even or uniform.
Exactly. And so what was the I was trying to find the feature that made them sporadic, like the randomness.
Yeah, that's in feature masking, and it's called random remove. Or random mask, remove mask. Yeah, that one.
Oh yeah, so. Oh, I see.
There you go.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's really nice. So obviously my width is pretty wide here. And on top of that, let's say we have this path selected. Is it possible, and I presume it is, to have, I know we can basically add a mask for the spline itself. Let's see. But what if we wanted on a path like this? Let me add a few more barrels. On a path like this, what if we wanted to say remove the grass from the barrel locations instead of the spline itself?
Like you take the grass and you remove any kind of grass that is below the barrels, as I guess something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you would open the surface scatter tool. You select the grass,
Yep.
and then you open the tool. And then in one of, I think you had some proximity masking, so maybe pick like a proximity masking 3.
Yeah, because I haven't used it yet. So you can add that. Yeah. Oh, because
exactly.
Let's see. So that. Oh, perfect timing. All right. So is that a distance based on the barrels or the spline?
This one relies on the barrels themselves, not the spline. Basically the selection.
Okay. Because it's using the vertices of the barrel.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Yeah, that makes sense. I was trying to find a good middle ground. So you can see in the middle of the spline here, there's grass, but around the barrel itself, there is not. Well, that's really neat. Let me check and make sure that I have covered what I wanted to cover up to this point, because we have several different other things I wanted to showcase, but obviously there is a plethora amount of ways that we can procedurally add objects to any surface, to a surface, to a spline, to, drawing a curve. It's really, really unique. Before I tap into the next feature, which I think is one of your newer features that I really like a lot, is there any other questions that I may have missed? Because I know you've been doing a lot of answering in chat.
Yeah, I covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. To answer your, I'm in the same boat with you. I haven't worked on anything in terms of game creation. It's mostly just environment art, photorealism stuff for marketing and promotional stuff, but doesn't mean that you couldn't do it. One thing that I actually just thought of was, are all the static meshes like these barrels, do they do it in a hierarchical way? They're not each individual static meshes. They're just hierarchical instances.
Yes.
Okay. Because I know with grass, for example, and I'm not sure about this grass, but if you were to, for a landscape, add grass in the material shader that applies to a certain texture or a certain landscape layer, that grass has no collision. Obviously, you don't want all the grass to have collision. That would be a nightmare. But anything that you apply like that, any static mesh that you apply as a grass type is going to have no collision. But any static mesh that you drop in is obviously going to have collision unless you turn it off manually. But you can create a blank actor, and in the details panel for that blank actor, you can add a hierarchical static instance mesh of a rock, and you can duplicate that hundreds of times basically. And it'll be way cheaper on a game doing that as opposed to adding static meshes of something manually one by one. So I didn't know if these splines or these meshes that you add procedurally were like that workflow where it's instancing every aspect instead of, because these rocks, if they were all individual instances, would probably be pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So you can use the grass output node in the material or use a PCG graph and select the layers you want to assets to be on. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, Storm. And it's actually one of the masking features for Dash that I'm hoping to showcase in a little bit that is pretty exciting, where you can have dash populate grass based on a material or based on a landscape layer, which is really, really cool. All right, let's see where I'm at here. I have not done this one yet, but I am very anxious to try it since these are individual static meshes. I think it would be really cool to try. You think I could put a vine on this barrel?
I don't think. Actually, I've never tried. It's basically vines on instances. I actually have never tried that. I don't think it. I think vines now works on like regular meshes and procedural meshes,
Let me.
but definitely not instances.
Yeah, let me just add one barrel, and we'll start there. Yeah, we'll start there, and then we'll test out if I can scatter whatever I want on the other ones. All right, so let's go back to our library. And I believe it has to be atlases. And let's just do vine. I like this devil's ivy. So our control click drag onto this barrel. And since it's an atlas, it knows that it's one of those things where, hey, you may be wanting to add vines here. But before I do that, maybe it'd be a good idea. I think it's smart for me to at least select that first, because I do like the create vines on selection option. Okay, so that, I'm curious where the vines spawn. I know that there was supposed to be a little widget.
Yeah. Could you select again and show me the plant or the atlas you drag and drop?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and try again.
So I'm controlling, create vines on selection. Oh, there it goes. But where is the, before I X out of that.
Yeah, I think it seems like
there it is. It's right here.
Oh, okay. At the origin all over. Okay.
Yeah. So now, since it knows that it wants to be on this barrel, this little widget here, let's get close. Oh, that's kind of ridiculous. I like this.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's really cool that it goes with it wherever it goes. But now, I think I tried this last night and I couldn't get it to quite work right with those vines, because the vines are invisible. Or the leaves, the leaves, yeah.
Could you increase the value, the growth size, like all the way at the top?
Oh, this growth iteration. Oh, growth size.
Yeah, like hold like shift and drag just to go like pretty.
That's wild.
Okay. Yeah, and if you go down in like all the way down, there's a property group called leaves.
Yep.
Play with the probability value, like maybe 0.85, something like that. Okay, and adjust the scale, because I'm curious, maybe they are like tiny or something.
Oh, I see. Hold on, let me get a better.
It doesn't seem to be.
It may not have loaded the atlas in.
Yeah, that might be something like that. Actually, could you? So
of course, it does say there's no leaf meshes here.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
So you can try this in the content browser. Just drag and drop the atlas like somewhere on the scene. No need to do control. Yeah. And hit enter. And do you have an atlas selected or?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that seems like a buggo.
Let's see. I'm gonna try to see if I can't see it in the.
Yeah, it definitely seems to miss that asset somehow. Could be related to some data of the asset or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of. Let's see. Is there another maybe dry leaves? Okay.
And, mhm.
All right.
Okay.
So they're
Could
here,
you?
right? I think the dried leaves are right here.
Oh,
Maybe, or is that just a rock? Nope, that's just a rock.
no. Yeah. So could you check the output log and just take a screenshot and send it to me? I'll check that.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom in
Oh,
Unwrap.
yeah. Pfft, stupid.
And it should open. Actually, you can. Yeah, that's seems weird, but okay. Yeah, I've seen it. You can continue.
All
I'll
right.
definitely. We're currently actually revamping this tool
Uh-huh.
to make sure that you have like a function called draw curves, but another one also called draw vines. That way
Oh,
you can
yeah.
draw like a curve on a wall, and it makes the vine for you automatically.
Oh, I see. So let me select the vine itself. Is there a way to? I think it'd be interesting to have the option, like for the branch material. If was there like a drag and drop function directly from the content browser onto, like dragging it directly onto the leaf mesh as opposed to like in the scene first?
Not yet. Actually, we had that. I removed it
Oh,
because I noticed most people weren't using it. But the workflow right now is basically you pick a surface, you drag and drop it on the vines, like in the scene, and then they're applied for good. Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, that brings up a good point because this actually. Let me open this up real quick. News. More. All right, so here is. I know in your release notes here, it's works just like this, and it's really cool. Maybe I got the wrong atlas. Grapevines on
Yeah, I think
selection.
it.
There you go. See,
Yeah, I
that's
think it might be asset specific because we've had
yeah.
a few users also use it without issue. So maybe an asset problem. I don't know.
That's okay. I just thought I had that work that Devil's Ivy work before, but regardless, just this right here, this crazy vine function of it just doing this wild stuff. Let's do like growth size. We can take it down, or growth iterations. There we go. That's what I want to do is iterations, make it a little more smooth. Even this is really cool because once I can play with it around with it more. But you guys get the idea. It's supposed to work that way, but being able to do that is pretty incredible. And I assume, let's actually see, because I am curious if just the vines, if I bring it over here, maybe I pushed it underground. That's what I did. I accidentally pushed it underground. Let's bring this over here, select this, and then add this as a surface for the vines to attach to. Let's see.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up. I'd be surprised if it works. Yeah.
It didn't. It's fine. But what's the origin? So you can add multiple origins, multiple of these points.
Yes. Yes. Yes, you can. Like you can. So you have the point selected. It's just an Unreal empty actor. Yeah, you can duplicate it as many times as you want, and then just add them as the origin, and it'll all work just fine.
Oh, I see.
Don't forget to remove the barrel instances from your surfaces, and then it should be good.
Don't forget to remove what? Sorry. The
Oh,
barrel.
like you select the barrels that you've instanced,
I
you
did.
give them the curve. Yeah, and
These,
then you
yeah.
right click on the surface property, remove selected,
Yeah,
and
yeah. And
there you go.
these will work primarily for this guy. So this is really snazzy. And I presume, oh, that's cool. The vines move independently from the barrel. But I presume since these things are actors, you could append these actors to one another so that when you move one, you move them all. So that's just a user.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I want to try something. I know it shouldn't be in a live stream, but let's do it anyways.
Okay.
You can do draw curves and draw a curve like from the ground onto the barrel. Like just imagine a vine that goes from the ground to the barrel. You can just draw one.
Let's do it. Draw curve.
And let's see.
All right.
Yep, hit enter. Okay. And
oh, it
you
did.
open
Look.
the vines tool. There you go.
Look.
You open the vines tool. You give it the curve.
Okay, let me hit enter. Yeah, let me go to the vines tool. Yep. Select the curve. Add that as a surface or an origin.
As an origin.
As an origin point. I did it. Look, custom vine.
There you go. Yeah.
So there's two ways we can do this. We could do it procedurally, or you could be a madman and draw your own curve manually.
Yeah, I mean, when you're trying to do, if you have like a specific shot, let's say like in games like The Last of Us, you have a lot of these cases where you just want to draw a curve on a wall in like a specific pattern.
Yeah.
And then you put lines over it.
That's really cool. Is the spline, not the spline, but is the vine feature and this sort of spline feature very similar to the what is it, cable tool? Yeah. Is it very similar to that?
It's actually quite different. Like basically when it comes to vines, there is one guy who maybe 10 years, 15 years ago did an algorithm, and everybody, us, Side Effects, 3ds Max, you name it, they all use this same algorithm to do vines. And they're not amazing, but it's a long and boring task to do like a new vine thing. So it's like its own thing, and the cable is like its own thing as well.
Oh, I see. So this is pretty handy. The description also tells you a little bit about what it's doing. So it's creating basically that spline between two objects as endpoints. And I'm assuming you can add multiple objects to create midpoints.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this cable tool is that you could create like two planes, you make them face each other, and you feed them to the tool. And then you'll have kind of cables hanging between two planes, and it's like really practical for quickly decorating a scene.
You can't just say that and then me not do it. All right.
I won't do it.
We're gonna.
And you mentioned also earlier kind of like the tooltip. One thing that I'm very excited about with Dash 1.8 is that you'll now have like small GIFs playing in every single tool, so you'll know exactly what everything does, like visually.
And that's upon like highlighting it or something?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so if I select these two, cable, tool, and then add these two as the objects.
And change the mode to scatter instead of object scatter.
I gotcha. Voilà. So that's another thing. I didn't really cover the mode function even on the scatter tool, but there's different ways of how that operates, you know, the engine that provides that information, I presume. Wow, this is interesting.
And one of my favorite parts here is that you can actually, you know, select one of the planes and just start like scaling it or doing whatever, and the cables will just adapt at runtime. It's really, really cool.
Make them
the radius.
Yeah, making them. I was just making them a smidge smaller. All right. Say, what was the interesting thing?
You can basically select like a plane and start moving, scaling it around, and everything will just start to adapt.
Dynamic.
Yeah. And then if you like stretch it, you'll see the cables will look like smaller at one end, and yeah.
This makes me think of the best way to add a bunch of wires and something that's like cyberpunky.
Yes.
Because
exactly.
You know how many wires you have to have in a game like that where you just, oh gosh. All right, this is exciting. What about, I assume rotate works too, so it just changes the, oh, that's cool. So here's I don't know if this is something that's you've thought of, but I love the idea of say, hey, all right, we like this. We want to select all the cables and we want them to adhere to their locations onto that surface in some way. Like you've basically just baked the cable. Like you've done your procedural-esque nature to the cables. You're baking them now. And if I twist it, if the cables twist within each other, because I can see now me rotating it, it's still just doing the procedural part between the two meshes. But if I wanted the cables to just be really twisted, that would be a twisted way to do it. No pun intended.
Yeah. No, I get what I was actually talking about this with a colleague. I think it was like yesterday, like a proper physics solution.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I hope we can do for 1.9. Like you should be able to, for example, you have an option called draw cable or rope, where you just draw, like imagine in circles on the ground, and then you'll create this kind of like over layered cable, you know, like when you roll a cable on the ground and it's like this circular pattern. Same thing here. You should be able to rotate the plane and everything will just start kind of wrangling in between each other. Yeah.
They brought up a good point in chat just now. One of the things I was just thinking about of two functions of this would be really cool is if vines could scatter on these cables, or if the cables could be vines.
Actually, you can grow vines on the cables. Like if you...
Oh, is it part of the scatter? Oh, never mind. Self-scatter. Is it part of the cable tool, or is it you select the cable tool and then add to it?
Yeah, pretty much. So, you know, you can, you open the vines tool and you move one of the locators near the plane, for example. Oh, I think you closed the Dash UI.
Oh, well, I didn't mean to do that. This full screen mode is kind of cool.
Yeah. And then you type in the dash bar like vines.
Vines right here?
Yeah.
Create vines on specific surfaces?
Yeah, so you give that as your origin, and then you give the cable as a surface.
Oh, I see. All right, hold on. I didn't copy one of these. Let me just copy it over. I just moved what was there.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so you can see that vine is still there. All right, so here's the vine gizmo. All right, so we add this as an origin.
Yep.
And then we select the cables and add it as a surface.
Exactly.
Yep, I see it right there. Yeah, you can see it.
Go. Yeah, it's like growing all over. And here, when you start adjusting values, like the, what do you call it again? The growth size, that's when you'll start seeing things just going everywhere.
Oh, for the vines?
Yeah.
Let's do
Oof.
Oof.
Yeah, 20 is a bit crazy. Like, I think you can basically just drag it between, usually it's like between 1 and 5, something like that.
Yeah. 10 didn't look too bad. Looks like someone had a heyday with wires. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, and if you scroll a bit down in the tool, you'll notice there's a value called adhesion weight and
Uh-huh.
another one called noise weight. So you can play with those. Just drag the slider with like control held. But it's like between 0 and 1. And that one is adhesion, and then you play with the noise value. Sorry, the random weight. Right above
Oh, I see it. I
adhesion.
see it. Yeah, sorry.
Yep, and then you
Oh,
can
okay.
drag it. And I think basically once you give it a few more, what are you calling it? These locators, these actors that you're using as the origin. Once you have a few more, the whole space, the whole cables are gonna get like colonized by vines.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
And you know, actually, one thing that for 1.8 I was working on just the other day is you have a mode. You can either have these points, or the surface itself can be the origin. So that way, you know, automatically you give me like the cables, things just start to grow right away, kind of behavior.
That's pretty gnarly. And
Yeah.
addition to vines could, I'm assuming other objects could be scattered. Like, what about? Have you guys thought about doing anything with like cloth?
Uh, it's been on our backlog for a while. We actually have NVIDIA physics
Ooh.
just for our physics system.
Hmm.
So it's what we use for the physics tool. And we're going to use it for you were talking earlier about how you twist the cables and, you know, they intersect nicely with each other. We're going to use NVIDIA physics for that. And then after that, we'll see if we can get cloth out of it as well in Unreal.
Oh, that's really cool. I like this a lot. I mean, of course, what I did was a nightmares cage here, but the fact that this exists is really cool because, you know, moving this around, you can see, even though the actors of the vines don't move with it because I don't have that put together yet, but just being able to do this in real time, this is one of those features where it really takes the technical hurdles out. So you're doing the job that everybody doesn't want. Like,
Yeah.
you're doing it. You're like, to create this, you've got to do it technically first, and you're just giving these tools to us, like, just like this. This is really cool. You know, it makes me think this is a really cool thing for, you know, tropical forests or something like Uncharted or Last of Us. You know, whatever these decrepit sort of environments that have a lot of vegetation and wildlife that kind of spruce up and take over. This kind of reminds me a little bit of that, where even if you had a static tree, I'm assuming you can say, hey, I want these vines to grow up this static tree. And by, you know, having an artist's eye, by doing this spline function here, let me pull this over here so it will, oh, I removed my spline on over here. Oh, I see. I just moved it over here. Having the artist eye to create a custom spline up to that tree and then have the vine tool take over the tree. Maybe there's a cable from an old road, like a power line cable that runs through that tree. The vines carry along the power lines. You can have this whole interconnected web of stuff.
And yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do with Dash is I can actually have a tool that generates something. And then I put some other stuff on it. Like the other day, I did some cables and then I put some vines on them. And then I grew vines on vines and then cables on those vines. And I just kept messing around until I got this kind of Lovecraftian scene. And it was quite fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I bet that looks pretty great too. By the way, I encourage anybody else to do these. Is it the 60-day challenge or 30-day challenge? Like every day, Adnan's doing a render from using Dash, and everything that you've produced so far looks really fun.
Appreciate it, man. I'm on. It's basically 62.
62
renders. I'm on 30. I think today I'm gonna do the 38th. So getting close to the end, and Yeah, I think I encourage, even if you don't use Dash, even if you don't even use Unreal Engine, I feel like it's a really good exercise
Oh yeah.
because you get to, it's very important for most artists to be comfortable with just making terrible art. And some days that's exactly what you're gonna do. You're in a rush, in a bad mood, or you're just not able to get any ideas, and you're just gonna make something terrible, but you do it anyways. And that means on your good days, when you do something good, everything will look really, really great. And you have the discipline is there basically. Now it's just the ideas that
Yes.
need to flow.
Your only limit is by not doing it. So having
Yeah.
having your ideas come out helps you be really creative. It's like one of those things where, as an artist, like not a 3D artist, but a physical artist with paint and pencils and stuff. In architecture school, I still do a whole lot of sketching, with floor plans and stuff. And it's one of those things where repetition, if you don't do it enough, you kind of lose the skill, but you can literally get back into it super quick. So if you spent an hour trying to draw something, spend 2 hours trying to draw the exact same thing, and then spend 3 hours trying to draw the exact same thing, and see how well you progress in terms of your skills. And that was one of the things that I've actually thought about doing with Dash as like a 1 week long exercise, was create a scene, and then the next day try to recreate that scene or something the exact same way, but see how much further you can take your detail in terms of learning the system. So like, we've spent, I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes since my computer crashed creating this. And even though most of it was trying to talk and explain different things, what if you spent that hour really trying to dive into something, and then in a few days you tried to recreate that scene to see how much further you can get into detailing?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think that'd be pretty fun. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is, man, you've got so many features into this one simple little prompt bar. Is physics.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of, let me get around over here, of a bunch of rocks spawning, or a bunch of anything spawning and just falling. I have actually, what was that? Anyway, I have actually not done this because I've been most of my stuff manual. So this will be sort of a training exercise for me. So to begin the physics stuff, we can bring in an object first, or is it required to bring an object in first?
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, you can use one of the barrels, for example, and just drop it around.
Oh yeah, let's I'll just grab this barrel. I meant to duplicate it, but that's okay. So let's rotate it because I'm interested in seeing something wild. So let's put it up in the air just from fun. And now with that selected, we just type in physics, right? Physics tool.
Yep.
And let's duplicate this a few times. I think I duplicated it a few times. Yeah. So with all of these selected, I could just hit start, right? Oh, I didn't select.
There you go.
I didn't.
You didn't select that one. Yeah.
This one I didn't select as dynamic, right? They all have to be dynamic. Yeah. Set dynamic and start. There we go.
Boom. There you have it. And there's basically like two features. This one is called physics drop, and it's like you select some objects and then you drop them.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is called physics paint.
Yes, that's the one I'm excited about.
My favorite one. Yeah.
So I can do physics paint selected.
Yeah, select some object, like again the barrel, and
let's try a couple rocks because I want to make. Actually, I think the barrel's fun. Let's just do the barrel. So let's select just one barrel.
Yeah.
Physics paint selected.
And then just start like painting.
All right. Oh, there it is. That's weird. the little circle where my cursor is supposed to be is, you can see it moving.
Yeah, I suspect there might be a problem with how you're doing like but perhaps it's like the live stream and some other
Yeah,
things
because
where, yeah,
I practiced this last night on my laptop, which was doing a screen sharing from across the room, and it didn't do this. Anyway, all right, so we can. Let's see. Oh boy, I did just left click and drag. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's. I think my actual finger point cursor is where it's being generated and not the circle. There we go. That's really cool. Let's see. How do we change the size of the paintbrush? Remove in radius. Pull towards center. Oh, that's interesting. So. Oh, that's cool. Let's see. Increase. So shift middle mouse drag horizontally. Okay. All right. That's what I wanted right there. So shift middle mouse drag horizontally. I think it's the smallest it can go for me. Oh, no. There we go. So now let's. Oh, good Lord. This is actually.
Oh shit, they're even on the cables actually.
Yeah, they are. Look. Well, I mean, you said the cables, they're all, oh, that's one other thing I wanted to point out about the cables. I love how these cables that you've created have, 3D depth to it. It's not just like a billboard card of a cable. It's not a flat plane, but it actually has some geometry to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that. So yeah, we've got some attached to the plane. So that is really cool. I actually think I lost a few barrels off to the side of the earth here that fell off. So I can see this being really, really cool with scattering. You spend a lot of time around urban environments trying to scatter things like debris or rubble. If you've had an explosion happen on a building, scattering rubble around a building could be really hard to do manually. Even whenever you do surface scatter, I think all of those would still feel like they're scattering in a different procedural way that's sort of mentally predictable for urban, man-made pieces. But for man-made pieces, doing this physics scatter or physics drop is really, really, I think it's a game changer. Although this one particular barrel, it's hanging on the this one little cable thread there.
All the hopes and dreams on a tiny thread.
So this is interesting because this also assumes that your mesh has a pretty decent collision mesh. And if it's a little bit on the outside of the visible mesh, or if it's a little bit on the inside of the visible mesh, that can make a difference. Things like this barrel, for example, the collision mesh is probably a little bit inside because we got some clipping into others. So I don't know if there is a way in the simulation to say, hey, we want to add each one of these barrels have sort of a bouncy factor, so you increase their bounce factor, so they hopefully spread out a little bit more. Or if they're like the weight, what's the gravity and the weight of these objects?
Yeah. Like right now, if you look at even the panel of the physics tool, it's unlike every other tool. It's just this weird bar, and we are planning to clean it up and make sure that it looks more predictable and you have control over such values, frictions, and what have you.
I got you. Well, I'm very anxious to see your next lineup of updates. That's really cool. This is great, even in its state. It's not a primitive state. It's a well thought out state. And even right now, when things haven't been progressed further, to where you would personally want it. It's an iteration process. And on top of that, you just hover over anything and it tells you what it is. Those in-engine sort of tooltips is what everybody needs. And it's a game changer in and of itself. So I'm glad I checked out the physics, because that's one that I was very excited to look at on screen. Let's now add, exit that out. And so I assume all of these are one asset. Yeah. So let's now add can I just create a box? Box. Does that work? It does. I don't know how you made that work, but you did. Let's see. All right, let's do this box and we're going to scale it up a little bit. Perfect. All right, now this is one of the other things I wanted to showcase. Let's do surface, and actually, let's do concrete slab, sketch metal paint, and let's do, where's that rust? Let's do a blend material this time onto this and apply blend material to this particular object. And I'm getting out of order, but this is a good opportunity to talk about the blend material, because it is, well, quite frankly, pretty awesome that you can just mix three together and they all sort of adjust based on their vertexes and things like that. All right, so we have the one texture here up front. And one thing I wanted to ask was, what determines, I'm going to select the material properties. So we have the blend material here. Here's all our adjustments for procedurally changing the different weights. So each one of the weights, so the R, G, and B, is one of the three textures that I selected. But right now, how do you determine which one is on which channel? Is it based on which one you select first is R and which one you select last in the content browser is B? I don't know, did you mute yourself? Oh, hold on 1 second. My audio can't, okay. Let's see. He says, all right, Adnan can't hear me. Chat, can you guys hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Adnan has told me that my audio has cut out for him, but I want to make sure that I haven't cut out for you guys. You can hear me? Okay, good. So y'all can hear me, he can't. Let's make sure. All right, that's set. I'm just going to restart it for him. All right, so we'll disconnect. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. All right, so we're going to do this again. Hey, you can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. It's Discord doing Discord things.
Yeah. And I can see your screen.
All right, perfect. I think I don't think you heard what I asked, but what I was asking was, we're doing the blend material stuff now. I added a cube that you can see here, and I added 3 materials, but I was curious if, how do you know which material is assigned to which color channel? Is it based on the order of operations of how you selected that material in the content browser? So the first one I selected was this concrete slab, and the last one I selected was this rusty metal sheet. So is that associated to the order of how it's picked in RGB for the blend material adjustments?
Yeah, so it's basically, let's say you select 3 surfaces, and you drag them. If, for example, the drag starts from like the concrete one, then that's going to be the first, and then the other two like second and third. So it's like, it's actually kind of messy. It's order plus the dragged surface. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or no?
No, I think I got what you mean. It's order plus the drag surface. And of course, I'm sure the height. Let's set that to 3.
I think for this one, I would definitely recommend, like you can make like a plane, and you'll see like how it works on the surface really nicely.
Actually, that's a good point, because I did this in I did this earlier. Create plane. Yeah, we'll just pull this over here. I like that I don't get the pings from Discord, but that requires me to visually look over to the left to see the ping. So I apologize if
No worries.
I was talking and you weren't you're like waving a flag. Help me up. All right, let's do these 3 because I like these 3. So we'll just do these 3 and then drag it over. So I see the list in the little icon. Preparing textures. All right, so we have this, and now we can mess with the blend material. All right, so you've always said to make sure that the height contrast is at least 2 or 3, right? In general.
You mean height? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Let's see what this does.
And then,
ooh, hello.
Yeah, for this, I think the way it goes from 0 to 1, so you can hold like a control to jump by 0.1 increments, or just drag it like without any hotkeys help.
Yeah, I did this. This is really cool. So, all right, we have that. So we can see that the lava rock is the bottom texture, and these rocks are coming in. Let's change this to 0 for now to see what the ooh, wow. Oh, I made it completely wet. Yeah. See what the natural colors are. And then so I see. So in order to get the R value or R weight, which is the this volcanic rock underneath the show any more than what it's showing, has to be a value above 0.49. So I'm assuming if I go to 5, if you can see, it is coming forth a little bit more there, or it's being reduced a little bit more. Let's see what this one is. Aha. Okay. So yeah, here's that dirt texture. Maybe we want a little bit more green in here. Sorry.
The last layer is basically like if you orient the lighting, you'll see that it's super reflective. It's like a water layer. I think the color somehow looks a bit off, but just orient the light a bit.
I forgot. I always forget the stupid command for lighting.
Oh, it's like Alt L, and then you drag the cursor. I think it's like the Alt to the left of to the right.
It's Control L, yeah.
Okay. There you go. And somehow it doesn't.
Oh, I think I know why. I have does it still do that with ultra dynamic skies?
Oh, you have UDS.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I haven't played with that one yet, but yeah, I mean, basically, so with the plane, you have the water, which is brownish colored, but you can go to like the group in the tool called B layer for like a blue channel, and then start. It's like the last one.
The base layer here.
No, blue. It's like the last group.
Oh, the B
There you
layer.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can reduce like the saturation to make sure that it's less brownish.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So maybe it's okay. I think the issue here was the textures are just a bit too dark. Here's the wetness overall. That's really interesting.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's one thing I was wondering about. So in terms of these weights, so the B weight is that water texture, that base layer, right? That's this B layer.
Yeah, so the weights basically are, you select 3 surfaces, right? And you drag and drop them. The first one is the base layer. That one has no weight because it's not, you can't hide it. The second one, the second surface that is selected is the R layer, R for red because you can vertex paint. And the third is the G for green.
Okay.
And yeah, and then we have kind of like a fourth layer, which is the water layer, and that's in like the blue channel or B layer in this case. Yeah.
I see now. And, so the order of operations is what it is down here. So here's the base layer, and this is the first texture in the content browser. R layers, the second texture, and by the way, each one of these layers is that sort of same material adjustments that we were doing earlier with hue, saturation, and contrast and all that. I just didn't realize that since the base layer, you're right, the base layer in that terms would never change. It's just how much of the R and G channel come through. So the base layer in this instance is this texture, which should be this one. And let's make sure its brightness, let's make it way brighter. There we go. Let's make it even brighter. All right, so here's the base layer, and that's that volcanic sand. And if we want more of whatever the R layer is here, we can increase the R weight. So I'm going to hold down Control and shift up or pull up a little bit, and maybe I'll do a little bit less. All right, so you can see, that this new texture is the R channel, and maybe we can change the hue of this so it's a little bit more staggering. Yeah, you see there it's changing to strobe lights. All right, so that makes more sense. That's one thing I wasn't quite familiar with, which those operations. And so lastly, for G to come in, you just need it to be a value higher than what the R is in order to come through, since it's the next in line. Well, it comes through. So I guess it's based on the height map or the displacement map of those textures.
Yeah, they're all based on the height map of the initial layer, basically.
Well, that's good. I did in your defense here choose 3 textures that were like bare bones flat to begin with. So this is and of course, I like this where we can change the noise amount itself, like the pattern of it. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty nifty. I like that a lot. So this is really cool. One question I had regarding this was, there we go. That's what I wanted. Can you apply a blend material to, I guess, how am I going to rephrase this? Can you apply multiple blend materials to a single object or whatever that object is? Assuming that, say that object had material IDs, or say that object had splat maps applied to it or an alpha mask applied to it, where you say, I want this blend material to go anywhere that splat map is, or anywhere a different blend material to be the base.
Yeah, you're thinking basically landscape workflows, I guess. Something like that.
Yeah, it kind of naturally comes into my mind. I was just thinking in general, like if you had an object, like for example, this barrel, say I want a blend material for the wood portion, or I want a blend material for the steel band portion. Of course, this would have to be a custom model that you make, and not a Quixel one in this instance, since this is all one texture. But if you set up a different material ID, that's where I was going with it. But landscapes apply too. Yeah. If you were to apply a blend material
Yeah.
per landscape layer.
Yeah, so right now we are working on a variant of this blend material that will work on landscapes. There's a couple of things that we have to clean up because landscape materials are just quite different. But yeah, soon you'll have kind of all these different features, but you can use it on a landscape and you can add as many layers as you want. And with regards to object masking, the fun thing actually is you can, for example, select the barrel in your scene, and then in the content browser you select two surfaces, could be like metal and another one is wood, and then you drop them on the scene, and with control selected you do blend material. So that will create a blend material where the base layer is the barrel's original textures, and then the other two that you drop from the content browser is like the R and G. And it's not yet with like, you don't have the masking capabilities with an ID mask. I think that should be fairly trivial to add. But yeah, like one thing that I do is I put a rock in a scene and it doesn't have a lot of moss or not the right kind of moss. And so I just blend material with that, and I break it up with another layer of like another rock surface, that type of stuff.
Well, that makes sense.
And yeah, as one of the commenters off the rail just said, the workflow of having multiple blend materials on, like if your barrel, the metal and the wood were two separate materials, like even as you imported them, then the workflow should apply as well. But yeah.
Oh, nice. That makes a lot of sense. All right, the next thing I wanted to show was, and I honestly don't know if I have any. I do, decals. Wanted to show that here's everything is about placement so far, different ways to scatter anything or texture anything on any surface, any static surface. We could also do decals, and I really like the way that you guys have done decals before, and I really don't know which ones I can try. Maybe this one. Okay, so with decals, we can scatter them or we can place them. Like even with placing them, we can place directly on top of this surface, right? Yeah, it's really intelligent. Ooh, hold on. Yeah, see it. I like how your way of doing decals is sort of very intelligent. How the decal just wraps the surface of this as opposed to just moving around. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, this decals are one of my favorite features because in Unreal, it's just you spawn them, they're like flat, and then you have to start orienting them and everything. And
Oh yeah,
yeah, this is really fun. And then you have like the tool decal scatter, and so you can just select an object and just scatter decals on it. Like it's really, really cool.
So we select an object first, or is this like yeah? So we've add this surface as the surface to scatter on. And then we'll open up the content browser. I guess
you can select the decal that's right in your scene.
Yeah,
actually,
yeah. So if you did that, yeah. So it adds multiple decals. Though that's not the that is not the right decal to apply to this particular. Maybe leakage is. Maybe it's add leakage to. Oh, it's way over here. There it is. All right, so we will add this particular decal. Let me change the density so it. Oh, it added all of them. Okay, so let's add that particular decal. There we go. It updated it all. So this decal was the manual one that I added earlier. And now these decals are part of the decal scatter. Even though they're not, they're still the decal that's meant for manually placing on a very specific location. But if we were to just...
Yeah. I mean, the kind of a use case, by the way, you can press G. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite use cases in with this tool is when you're making something like a road. You can pick a bunch of patches and cracks like the decals in the Megascans, and then just scatter them on the road. And just like that, you have everything look like the road initially was like a stupid tile texture. Now it looks really realistic, and then you can select the decals and adjust like the hue, saturation, brightness, just to make sure that it matches the road. So it's a really cool cohesive work. So
yeah, so selecting, like, that's another good point, selecting one decal, adjusting the material of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'd be really cool, and I know decals don't really have this by default unless you did it, but you had an emission layer.
Yes.
So
yes, we also have a... Go ahead.
No, go. No, I was good.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say we have we actually started improving the decal material a bit about a week ago. Like now it doesn't even have opacity, if I remember, like the one in 1.7. So there's a few small kind of kinks that we're trying to iron out, but yeah, should be pretty cool. Yeah.
That's another good point. So you can, and I know we're gonna dive into this on other streams too, because there's a whole lot of laundry list of tools here. Like I said earlier, you could spend all day. But so you mentioned road tools. So this specific to? It's obviously pretty similar to the draw curve or spline tool, but it's already assuming that it's going to be something specific around roads.
Yeah, so this one, the way it would be is, you know, like you draw a curve, which would be a road, with the draw curve function.
Oh yeah.
And then you give the curve to the tool, and it'll create a road around the curve for you.
Well, let's just select this curve with barrels and see what happens. Oops, sorry. There we go.
Yeah, maybe like move it out of the plane and like scale it just so it's like a big road.
Oh, it's wanting to take the barrels with it. So you can scale this like this.
Yeah, I think you can duplicate just so it leaves the barrel, like duplicate.
And it won't bring the barrels with it. Okay, well, that's actually much easier to deal with. Hey, there we go.
Yes.
All right. So now we can add this spline as the curve. Ooh, okay.
Yep. And then you increase the width for the road.
So we don't want a road that's only 10 centimeters wide. So what's a good road width in Sweden?
I have no clue. I don't drive.
300. Oh, that's right. Well, you wouldn't have to in Stockholm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so this is actually going to be pretty much a game changer in one of my upcoming streams in World Creator, because I'm going to do roads and rivers and stuff like that. So having this already, this is one of the most critical things with roads, is having them tapered. And you can see right there, you've already set up the spline to have a tapered edge. And typically in roadwork construction, the entire thing has a tapered edge to it. So it's sharp at the corners for water to run off. And somewhere about right here where the corner is, it slopes up slightly to the center, and then it slopes down to the edge.
Yeah,
in gaming, it's not really going to matter, or in these visual effects, it's not going to matter. But that's just a little piece of information for whomever didn't know.
I was actually going to mention this road tool. We almost rewrote it from scratch in this 1.8, and now you have an actual taper value that you can use to make things. It can almost be like a bell curve if you want to, or a completely flat surface. So it looked much closer to what you're describing.
I gotcha. So in this instance, since that's really cool. So I really don't think I don't have the American Road surface on this computer. I have it on a different computer, or asphalt. So seemingly in the Megaskins library, there's a road texture that you could apply, and I'm assuming that texture could be in line with this spline.
The texture will always be in line because the UVs basically are in line. And but yeah, you can drag and drop like one of them, and then usually the thing with asphalt though is that you have to tile it so much that the pattern is barely visible. It's just like very subtle, and the breakups you add them later on basically with decals, and this is where the decal tool comes in.
That makes sense, because you can add potholes and manholes and all that stuff.
Yeah. And a user actually just asked, does the road tool support blend material? And the answer is yes. You can actually have as many the blend material works on any surface pretty much, I think, except landscapes.
For now.
Yes, for now.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to do that. So yeah, you can see it's this is just a gravel, and it came out just fine. Of course, this is what you have to select the road and apply. There's the material for that. Ooh, snow on the road.
I mean, yeah, it would just be like, wait, yeah.
Oh, slope, yeah. It'd be super. Ooh, maybe it's just so flat it's taking up everything. Oh, yeah, it's so flat it's taking up everything, I bet.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, with if you kind of create another decal scatter. I think my earphones. I have like AirPods. One of them is about to die. I will disappear for like 5 seconds and then
that's fine.
Come back with normal audio. But
we'll have fun with some decals then. Manhole cover. There we go. So this is really cool. Awesome. Has road support blend. Okay, he's already answered that. Automatic pedal on the road would be nice, like snow. Oh, like wait, puddle or like tire tracks. Ooh, that's interesting. All right. And then this is really cool. I can select the decal itself. I think it needs to be a little bit darker. So let's reduce its brightness down. Maybe increase the contrast a smidge. Ooh. There we go. Roughness, let's make it a little wet. Let's make it slightly wet. And this material, asphalt typically has some sheen to it, not that much sheen. Even though this is gravel, you can add some level of sheen to it. Tracks would be details. Yeah. Okay, so that's really nice, actually. So let's actually, and I'm saying actually a lot, let's open up. Oh, I've already got it opened. Let's go back to surfaces. And what was that texture that I choose?
Okay, I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Welcome back.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's just see if this works. Oh, hold on. I wonder if it has to be more than one. Nope, we can do 2. And that is a good point. So now, since we've just added 2 materials here, we can increase some of the, presumably, hold on, let's do R a little bit. How much of this do we want? And
yeah, I think here I would recommend playing with like the noise, height noise.
the height noise.
Property. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Just have some breakups because the height map of like asphalt is like
yeah. I was just trying. Someone mentioned it'd be cool to see the blend on this. I've only got 2 textures right now, but just to get the water, the wetness to come through, yeah, like that. Even though it's super, like puddles of, yeah, like little puddles of.
I would. Yeah, I think like something like this, and then you tweak the height scale value just to have like a
height noise scale. Yeah, so let's take it down. Oh, okay, it's let's see, 0.1. Yeah, like that. So you have puddles in the road like this.
Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and kind of the transition as well. Whenever you feel like it's like really sharp, you'll notice all those layers, including the water layer, they have like a contrast, the height softness value, so you can make the transition from the water, like the B layer at the bottom.
So they're all individual. So
yeah,
height the softness. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can make the thing like softer or sharper.
Oh, I see.
If you want to.
Yeah. That's actually really, really cool, because puddles would typically, sometimes have this sharp, super sharp edge. And this is really cool. The water is filling in all the little tiny voids of the gravel.
Yeah, and if then you increase like the blend, it will obviously go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weight of this, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Or down.
Super sensitive.
Oh yeah. But it's cool. I mean, it's a flat road, so it's it's perfectly fine. This is really a really neat thing to do, and I'm excited to try it out with making some actual roads, hopefully pretty soon. I'm definitely going to be using this tool. Yeah, this is really interesting. I wonder if there's a cool way for the spline itself, particularly with the road tool, if you can set like, if I can select these nodes. Yeah. If you can select certain ones or a range of certain of these points to have primary and secondary functions, kind of like a rigging for characters and bone structure. So say you have this endpoint right here, I can select it and I can move it around, but say if as I move it, it has certain percentage influence on each one of these. If you wanted it to be that way, like kind of like a sphere of influence. So it moves with it, but not as much. When in terms of roads specifically, the way I'm thinking about it is how Illustrator does it, or any graphic design software where you have a spline and you have these handles to adjust the curve, and then once you're done adjusting the curve with the handles, that's whenever you're like, all right, I accept this, and that creates all of the necessary points for that smoothing function.
Yeah, that's something. In Maya, I think in 3ds Max as well, it's like soft.
Yeah, 3ds Max. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we are trying to do that. We did, I think, earlier this year. The only challenge is that you have to override Unreal Engine selection. That way, when you move like one point, it updates in the background. But yeah, let me update everything else. Like it's not a road specific thing. It's like a spline specific thing. So I think probably what you may end up with is, for example, you select the point, and then you run like you have the command like a draw curve, but you have another thing which could be called like a soften whatever name, and when you run that one, it will automatically query the point that you selected and give you the ability to smooth out the others that are nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, it's in the plans. We just haven't figured out how to do it right just yet.
I gotcha. That completely makes sense. I'm just having a bit of fun brainstorming here.
Mhm.
And I was just testing out the adding some decals. So that's really cool. I like this function. Everything about this is really fun.
Yeah, and you know the thing here is now you have like multiple tools that all revolve around the curve.
Mm-hmm.
You have the root tool, you have the decal tool, but if you were like okay, I'm trying to make something from like A to Z, you'd be like, okay, let me use the tool path scatter to scatter things, could be light posts, whatever, around the road. And once you have that, you then jump to something else, like maybe you want to have like concrete curbs here as well, use path sketch. So there's all these kind of steps that you can do to well, yeah, you can also scatter like vegetation and use masking on it, and like a post-apocalyptic Walking Dead style. One thing actually that I really wish we had, and this is also another thing we haven't yet figured out how
Mm-hmm.
to do, is a masking called like line masking, whatever. So on a road, when it gets cracked, you obviously sometimes have plants kind of grow from
Within
those.
that crack. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And this is something that is really hard to do.
Like
But
right here on this decal, if this were it's not really a crack, but assuming it was, yeah, any seeds and stuff would
yeah,
get in there.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's a big dream of mine in life to have that working.
Oh yes, Web on Twitch says you need to do this more. I would watch every day. Well, I've got a whole huge lineup for July, of different streams every Tuesday like this, or every other Tuesday, to do things like this. They're not all Dash, but we're going to this whole series, this world building series, is anything and everything evolved around making your life a little simpler and just being creative and world building. And I consider Dash a huge contender for world building applications or world building stuff, even though what I've shown here is more exemplary and not actually design elements to try and show the tools. But yeah, you can definitely expect to see way more of this. Even something as simple as, which was one other thing I was wanting to do, was create a fog card. I like this too, the volumetric cards. And look, it's right here. So, you know, something as simple for whenever you decide to do cameras and things, and you want this fog card to just take control of the whole side. I mean, this little instance right here saves an immense amount of time. Density, I mean, it looks pretty dang good. Can you change, like, have different cards that you want to have, or is it the same? Like if someone had a custom fog card that they wanted to use in terms of this system, I know this system has wind speed, wind direction. You can change how fast it goes, the brightness of it, and all that. But I'm just spitballing an idea there.
Yeah, when it comes to kind of, I guess what you mean is changing the actual mesh that we're using as a card,
Mm-hmm.
or
whatever, or even
yeah,
if it's the type of fog. If it's this, let me increase the density. This fog is sort of like a cumulus cloud type card. But if you wanted to have a card that was streaky fog, like you know, low lying fog across
yeah,
the ground that streaks.
Yeah, I get what you mean. That's actually something that we should definitely do with presets. Like if you play with the parameters, you will probably end up with something along those lines.
Hmm.
But ideally, we should just have like right now in Dash, if you look at the folk card like panel that you have, there's a close button on the top right,
Hmm.
and then on its left, there's an icon that has like a preset.
Yes, this right here.
The other one,
Oh yeah,
yeah, this
I
one,
love.
yeah.
I
And so
I'm glad you're talking about this. This is a point that I wanted to make. So go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say like soon what I hope we will start doing is we just all these tools are nice, but it would be great if we could ship like a library of just block out meshes, block out materials, block out everything. And yeah, like creating different cloud structures, for example, and saving them as presets. That way when you open the tool, you just go to the drop down and you pick like they have weird names like Cumumbus or Cunnilingus or whatever clouds. I'm terrible with their names, but you pick one of them, and then boom, you now have the whole the whole thing.
Just like this, you know, I'm glad you mentioned presets because that's one thing that I was going to ask about when I was making notes for this stream and playing around with Dash the past few days. There was this idea of, especially with what was it? I think it was scatter. Yeah, like surface scatter. If there was already pre-made presets for natural selections around scattering around a rock, for example, like here's the mesh around another object. What's sort of a natural preset for if that rock was in a desert, or if that rock was in a forest, or if that rock was in a tundra? What sort of assets could you naturally populate around it as a preset? And I'm assuming, I mean, presumably, if you have all those assets on your project and you've got all the references set up, you can create a preset of your own to do that. But seemingly, you're kind of creating. There's this feature in Unreal that I discovered a few years ago that I absolutely love called what was it? It's like level instancing. So instead of, I can go in kind of like a group editor. So I can select these barrels, say I want these barrels to be their own level instance. And I can go within that level instance. Everything around the barrels will be grayed out. And the barrels themselves, I can add whatever procedural elements I wanted around them. I could add anything as part of that. And if I duplicate that level instance somewhere else, it's the same exact thing. So that's kind of where I was going with these presets, is if you had presets that were like level instances of groups of different scattered objects that you've made. If that was a thing, like I could select everything that I've done here, all these barrels, grass, landscape, cables, and just make them a level instance and copy them multiple times over. But maybe their parameters within Dash are ever so slightly different. You know what I mean? That was probably pretty heavy to think about for Dash. So.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was actually on mute, but
No, you're fine.
yeah. So one thing that I'm super excited about and working on, like I'm gonna be working on it after the live stream and the day after, is what we call compound tools. So imagine this: you create a road, you scatter decals, you put lights around it, and then you put cables on those lights, and then you put
Mhm.
like a pavement mirror. So you have like 5, 6 different tools that are driving your main road. However, most of the time you only play with like 2, 3 parameters in every panel. And what you'll be able to do is you go to the dash bar, you type compound, and it'll open what we call a compound tool. Then you start dragging and dropping in that panel. It's like a tool, but it's empty. There's nothing. But you can fill it with properties. So you go to surface scatter, you drag and drop, like maybe you use the density property a lot. You drag and drop it onto the compound tool panel. Now it's there. And so you assemble all your favorite features from multiple tools in one panel, and that one panel basically becomes kind of your control center from which you can adjust pretty much everything. And later on, you'll be able to export it as a preset. And one second.
Mhm.
And so the idea basically is We're gonna ship a preset called the road tool, but it's not just one dash tool. It's exactly like you described. It's multiple tools, but you have one interface that controls them. And at any point, you can go, okay, I like the few exposed properties, but I want to go more advanced. And then you just go like right click on a property and say open the tool from whence this property came, and you start adjusting extra properties. So long story short, yeah, that's the current thing that I'm doing right now, and it's super fun to play with.
Oh, that's really cool. So one other thing that I wanted to showcase here before we went to something real fast. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to get to everything I wanted to today, but that's the nature of, I like these streams like this where we can communicate and discuss different elements and answer questions. But like I said before, Dash is all about providing things, to you from start to finish. Obviously, this environment's a little chaotic. We'll do some night streams or something where we actually dive in and design a scene. But I like this idea where we can also add a camera.
Yes.
I love that. And I love that I don't have to worry about that. So everything that you can think about with the camera should already be sort of preemptively somewhat set up for you, I suppose. And everything you can change, like with any camera, you can change the aspect ratio over here. You can change the focal length, if aperture, focus to everything, exposure, all of that. But one cool thing that I really love about this is the grading presets. Just by clicking this thing until you get to a color grading aspect that you like. This, I don't even know why this isn't like a normal thing all the time. I kind of like that mood. And then, of course, you can add post-processing on top of that and sort of other fine-tune color correction tweaks. But this is where the whole presets thing kind of got me down this rabbit hole of ideas of presets. This is really cool. This button, I can just keep clicking and it adjusts all these parameters kind of for me automatically, which is really great, especially whenever you find a preset that you like. I presume that you can click plus here, add that preset, that grading as a reference for future cameras. Another thing, and I hope it works, which would be really cool. I'm going to have to find one real quick.
The image grading thing.
Does that work?
Yeah. We had a bug report on it like just yesterday. Okay. You can try it. I haven't, yeah.
Yeah, let me find an image that's not under an NDA right now. I work on lots of stuff and I don't want to be presumptuous here.
Yeah. There's a user, Emre, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Old version of Dash had cyclable lighting setup. It was removed until it gets better, or is it available now? Yeah, it was basically removed because it looked terrible, to be honest. I know some people liked it, but it's like, I don't want to help you make bad art. That's why I had removed it back then. But we have it in the plans to introduce it back with like a proper lighting and what have you.
Oh, cool. All right, so this is gonna be, does it matter what kind of, is it have to be a JPEG or a PNG or?
It should work with either of those two.
Okay, so this is gonna get pretty wild of an idea here. So I have a splat map of a wacky color. Let's see how well this works. So you drag it right on the center of the
yeah.
It did actually change it. It did change it a smidge, but not as much. Let's see if it does black and white.
Yeah, for the black and white, actually, I pushed a fix the other day where right now the problem we have is we don't check for that specific filter. Like if there's literally no saturation, we
Okay.
force the saturation ourselves. That's why it might be a bit.
No, you're
I
fine.
mean, actually, the grading to the image to grading feature, we've received a lot of really good feedback on it. And what I want us to do next is basically we go back to it and we make sure that we improve the accuracy, better brightness sampling, saturation, hue, and probably something like gain and what have you. Like we have to get as mathematically correct as possible. My understanding right now is mostly guesswork. It was a small feature, but the feedback has been great. So we'll have to make sure that it's much more accurate.
I gotcha. Okay, well, that's probably still just a bug on my end, but presumably this is a good opportunity to show what it's supposed to do. Yeah, right here. Should be as simple as this once it gets down where you can just drag and drop an image and that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, for those who are listening, we found a bug on it, and we're gonna push a fix pretty soon, and then it should work. Actually, quality is gonna be better. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. I wanted to try. Let's see. Perfect. We got everything on that regard that I wanted to touch on. So I like that the camera, which I've just now moved around crazy, is you can add multiple ones of those. Presumably, it'd be kind of interesting if you had different effects that follow the camera. Like if you wanted I'm saying this, I don't know if this is a thing or not, but it'd be kind of cool if the fog card always followed a certain perspective from the camera, or maybe a background. Actually, here's a good thing. If we go to, can we do HDRIs? If I wanted to use this HDRI, I just have to drag and drop it in the scene.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like out here.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And there you have it. Yeah, I mean, one of the blessings and curses of Dash is that there is so much. There's so many things that cover a wide range of disciplines. And so a lot of our users tend to do a lot of scatter-centered tasks, and this is the things that will often be like the most predictable and working amazingly well. And when a feature is not used a lot by the users, it's like either I use it in my dailies, and that way I get to capture issues, or we wait for someone to come back and say, I wish the behavior was slightly like one feature request that we got was the HDRI is great, but I would love to automatically orient the brightest spot of the HDRI to the sun.
I gotcha.
And that's the type of thing where we're actively trying to implement.
Huh. That's really unique. So it does pay to be a part of the feedback and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So many of the features that you see in Dash are either from I'm gonna sit down and make an environment or look at references nonstop for hours, and then you have users trying to do the same and coming back, and then you have studios also doing the same. So sometimes you're gonna use a feature, you don't know that it's used in a pretty big NDA game that is in development that they requested and we implemented, we make it available for everyone. So I think that's, if you ask me what is the best part about this whole Polygonflow thing, I would say it's that me trying to be as what's the term, as proactive and discipline in making art. That way, I better understand what I'm doing and
Hmm.
what we're trying to sell people. The users also doing the same thing, and then studios coming with their feedback. And everyone, if someone has the idea of the century, and they say, "Could you guys please do it?" We're gonna be like, "Yes," but it's gonna be available for everyone, and now everyone benefits basically. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's an incredible tool, and you're definitely going to be seeing a whole lot more of that around here. So the last thing, and forgive me if this sort of bugs out, but you saw it earlier. I'm going to open up another map just to see how certain landscape is going to work out. Yeah, let's take this scatter. All right, let's take that and I'll hide that real quick. So one of my series that it's going to be part of this world building series is doing sort of this full blown start to finish thing with a landscape and an architectural element. This is a sample house that I've designed that's still a work in progress with things. Textures, and this has not been textured. This has been exported directly from Autodesk's Revit through a Datasmith pipeline. So if you know what that is, you just import a Datasmith file that you've exported from Revit, and it brings that in here. So I can have all my architecture projects in Unreal, much like I do every week with Twinmotion. But the premise is the project that's going to be upcoming as a showcase is basically using Dash to populate something like this on a just for the visuals. Of course, things in the distance aren't really going to be seen. It's going to be based on what we've learned today is a close proximity mask based around the elements of this particular house. And much like what we showcased earlier, there is, I don't know if you can see, there is a road that's planned to go right here through the middle of the site. And we'll add a water element. This water element right here was actually created by Dash. I don't know if you guys have any more plans for different water types, but this is going to be a really cool lake right across from this house. Granted, this is a very big site, like very, very big site. I think this whole map right now is 2 kilometers. So it's pretty large, but you see the idea of what we're going to be doing at some point. But what the feature that excites me, because all of my World Creator users or landscape users will know that we've been into this sort of series with creating 2 different really interesting ways of texturing landscapes in Unreal, like different ways of setting up material pipelines. This landscape you see here is just a very typical old school, I wouldn't say old school, well, it is kind of old school method of doing your typical landscape layers, material functions, things like that. But it's the material layers that I'm really interested in seeing about. And so what I would like to do, hopefully it doesn't crash, maybe over here. If I were to open up Dash's content browser here, and let's go back to Megascans. Let's choose a 3D asset. Something perhaps like a rock. So tundra rock formation. So how big is this actually? That's not bad. So let's select the landscape. We're gonna see how well this works. Actually, let's not do that first so that I don't crash the system. Let's just add a create a cube right here. All right, we're going to scatter this to the cube first, even though it's kind of weird to do that. Just a temporary thing because I don't want the static mesh to scatter across the entire landscape, just in case Unreal decides to crash again, because if it does, that's probably it for today. Let's say old version of Dash had cyclable lighting setup option. It was removed after until it got much better. Is that available now? I don't know.
Yeah, I got to I answered him later, but short answer is basically that it's not because it was terrible, but we are working on adding it back.
Oh, there we go. All right, so that's not too big. Let's actually remove. Select the landscape. I wonder if we can do that. There we go. All right, so I guess it worked out better than expected. Here you go, Adnan. Here's rocks throughout a 2-kilometer landscape.
Yeah, I'm still very anxious, but go on.
So honestly, this is going so much better than the grass. The little bit of grass that I had over here earlier that was really dense. Anyway, I do want to see. All right, so this gray texture here is a pretty crappy texture. It's just the default texture just to get the landscape layer system set up. So what I want to know, or what I'm interested in, is we've been through surface scatter before, but down here at the bottom of the surface scatter, we see landscape layer masking. And this is what obviously in this channel piqued the interest big time. Although now that I think about it, I can't remember what I called that layer. Hold on. It's just rock. Okay, good. So I presume what happens is we want to scatter this just on the rock layer, but we need to actually say what the layer name is here. So it's rock. And hey, look at there. Hey, it scattered it all along the rocks. Let's maybe increase the density just a little bit. So this placement here that you see outside of the gray area is not from Dash necessarily. It's from my splat map. The splat map that's created has a big amount of gradient that's coming off to the side, so I wouldn't worry about that. But I will say let's change the scale to be 3 times what they are. This is better.
And you can also set the value surface align to like 1.
Yes, I was wondering about that. So if it's 0, does that mean it's perfectly flat? Okay. And 1, yeah, it goes with the surface. And then because of that, I'd like to sync them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. See, you're everything worked out fine.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm still holding my breath. So
yeah, and go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, then you can start, you have like the min-max scale, you can toggle the values until like the thing covers the area quite nicely.
Yeah. So this min-max scale here, so if we did 1, or maybe it has to be more dense.
Yeah, and actually one of my favorite features in Dash 1.7 did. Oh, no, it's in 1.8. So you see, you have min-max, but sometimes you want to make sure that they're the same value at all times. You can basically make a reference value, and they will share the.
Okay.
Do you know how to make the reference value?
Yeah, right here, reference. So add a reference.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
but you can put like whatever value, like 5, and then you assign it to both, and it'll share both. But I mean, what I really like about 1.8, which is the upcoming version, is that you'll soon just be able to drag a property on another, and then you'll make a reference. So that it's not like go to the class, and when I'm making a scene in the dailies lately, it's like really instant. One is like dragging suddenly many properties are like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is nice. This is nice.
Oh wow, yeah, that's incredible. And so this is the extra bit of feature that I was particularly excited for, that you could do landscape layer masking, um, which is really really unique. But also I can see that this is only up to 3 layers. Of course, some people will have way more landscape layers, so it's just a matter of finding what you need to work with it.
Yeah.
One thing I was wondering also about was, I guess if you had instead of assigning it to a landscape layer, if you had like an alpha map for the whole landscape, like this is distributed instead of based off a landscape layer, but if you had a different sort of alpha map that you wanted to do it off of, you could.
Yeah, I mean, I think still the landscape layer workflow I think is better. And with regards to the kind of only having 3, we don't have right now the ability to add the properties, in existing tools. But that's something that also is coming to 1.8. And at that point, we could, for example, say by default, when you open the layer landscape layer masking group, it only has one layer, but there's a plus icon, on the side of the expand one. And so you can have like one, you can have 100 billion if you want. And yeah. Oh, yeah, once you're done painting and
Oh, I
doing
know. It's
changes,
not real time.
you
Yeah.
have to. Yeah. So you watched the live stream, I guess.
I was there. Yeah. So it's not real time, but once you exit landscape mode, that's a lot of rocks. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that's really cool that I like about this is if I wanted to, where is it? If I wanted to, it's in the engine content. I've done this before. PCG tree. This is a very primitive tree, but it pays the example. So say I want the scatter of this to also scatter within a proximity around this object, right?
Yeah, I haven't used actually proximity with the landscape, or have I?
Well, here's the thing. I think what it is, it's not within this tree. So it's masked out this tree. If I were to probably invert this, it comes in.
Oh,
But the tree needs to be close to a rock.
Okay, so actually the thing is you're using object masking, but I wouldn't use that. I would use proximity masking.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because object masking is like, you have to keep inside, so it's trying to keep things inside, that kind of stuff. Yeah, and if you move it like near some of the rocks, you'll notice that they start to go away. There you go.
Yep. Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so now you can invert, like maybe you want to invert the effect. That way you only keep the rocks that are near the tree and set the value to like 10,000, because why not the distance?
So that's what makes sense. So even though it's proximity around the tree, it's still going to be proximity based on the landscape layer. You see how the rocks are following the landscape color? That's pretty cool. Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
So this is one of the things I really wanted to show, because it kind of paves the way for we set up sort of in one of the first streams I mentioned, I set up that PCG graph that does this same thing, but I did it here with different assets in a way quicker way, like far faster. So there's some pros and cons to every tool, but I'm very pleased with Dash, and I think you've got an incredible little something on your hands. That was a good.
I know I'm biased, but I agree.
No, you shouldn't be biased. You have every right to be happy with it. So, so everyone, that's all I pretty much had today to kind of showcase the pipeline of what Dash is, some of the key things that you can do. There's several different things that we can go over. Actually, one of them right here that I mentioned before, IES. I am a huge user of IES files in my architecture work. So just dragging a light right here and shifting it around with real world IES data is crazy. So this is the one thing that is super important in my line of work is lighting, like real world lighting like this. So I really appreciate that inclusion for sure. So I would highly encourage everyone to go check out Dash's or Polygonflow's Discord channel. I would link that, but I can't link your invite location. So if you want to post that, you can. But I'm sure if you go to the website, which I'll bring it back up here. Yes, go to polygonflow.io and definitely check out everything. You can go to several different links and see everything that it's about. And I highly encourage everyone to at least give it a trial run because it's a super big game changer, I think, in terms of what's available in this day and age in Unreal. So does anybody have any questions for me or Anon before we close the stream today? Just let us know. And Anon, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to hang out with me and do this. You're more than welcome to come back anytime.
Appreciate it, man. And yeah, this was fun.
And I hope for future streams, I can just go through. It'll probably be some like evening streams for people where I can just go through and create something. Maybe I'll do some of these challenges like you and see what I can do in a couple hours and then stream that. And we'll just straight up create. And anybody that needs help with understanding more involved, detailed explanations to how to use Dash, definitely check out Polygonflow's YouTube channel, where there's a great list of videos and guides on how to do everything that I've shown today, but I think in a little bit more graceful, fine-tuned way, since we were just kind of doing it live is a little bit different than doing it as a tutorial. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone hanging out, and thanks for watching.